Hello, Motorrad World fans, and welcome back and welcome to Talking MotoGP. We're going to be talking Silverstone round in the British round of the MotoGP here in the UK in the scorching heat. I mean, those are two words I never ever thought I'd use living in the UK, but that's exactly what it was. First of all, Paul, thank you so much for joining me once again. How are you doing?
Yeah, Rob, fantastic. Nice to see you. Glad you had a good weekend. Seems like forever since we've had this chat, eh? I mean, it's been 4 weeks, but it seems like a lifetime. And yeah, I'm glad you had a good weather. And I must say, I was impressed with the weekend generally. Obviously, the MotoGP race was not the best ever, but yes, how was that Moto 2? I don't know if you watched the rerun afterwards. I mean, how many guys has this happened to? I just felt so sorry for him. But he said it was an error on his dashboard, but whatever. Shame, man. Yeah. But besides that, it was an absolute pearl of a race, eh?
It was Moto 3, Moto 2 was fantastic. As you said, MotoGP, not as fantastic as years gone by, but again, 12th different winner,
Yeah.
at Silverstone. So it certainly does throw up a few surprises. In pole position in the comments is in the land of YouTube, Yvonne Pretorius, always on the podium. She's leading this championship by miles now. We might as well
She's
give
going
it.
to win the BM.
No, she's going to win it. She's won. She's won the BM. She's won the number one plate. She's got it all. Paolo Ciacchetti on the podium again. He's got some points lately, so that's great. Hi there, everyone. It would be great if we could see the racing that Brad and Luca ETC were having further down the field. Paolo Ciacchetti, brilliant comment, and I'll mention it a bit later in with the rider debriefs that I did. That was the first thing Luca Marini mentioned in his Sunday debrief was. And he was so happy, he was buzzing, and he was like, it's a pity you guys didn't see the race that we had further down because obviously they're following the front. It was simply fantastic. Like Marini was buzzing about it. So definitely a topic of conversation. Gabs 23 on the podium, BB 33 rider of the day, 18th to 8th. Roberto De Sosa, Dean Lemon, Haman Kupala, hi Rob and Paul, Mike Teal, hi Rob and Paul, greetings from myself and grandson Liam. Hello and welcome to you, always tuning in. It's fantastic. See Grant Furrows, Dick Crosby, good evening Rob and Paul from a freezing Highveld. Past best wishes to Brad for his birthday. Yeah, it is Brad Binder's birthday and his right-hand man, Bjorn Esmond today. So wishing them both a very, very happy birthday. Good chilly evening all. Dis Piscoat. Rob Grant Furrows. I don't know what you guys are talking about. All this cold. It's like I think it's 34 degrees here still right now. It's incredible. Shanghai Rob, evening Rob and Paul. Sorry I missed you this weekend, but some swear word stealing my bike. This is my Scottish mate, Robert Mackey. Shame he said me his bike got stolen like literally the day he was going to leave. Well, he woke up in the morning to leave and his bike was stolen. Can you believe it? It's a big thing here in the UK, bikes being stolen. Alex Fullion in pole position in the land of Facebook. Grant Gibson, Robert Ferreira, Francois Retief, Ziggy Zimmerman. Good evening, Rob and Paul. Interesting races and stoked for Brad. Ollie Moto. It was great to see Ollie Moto and his beautiful partner out at Silverstone this weekend, only briefly on the Thursday when they got paddock access in the afternoon. And then my time was cut short because I got access to great story, and I'll start with the story quickly and then we'll go into the rest of the show. But I managed to get 2 of the latest Marc Marquez replica helmets with visors and everything. So I organized with Shuey. I get to the track on Thursday morning. I go to the Shuey racetrack, typical French guy. Like, what do you want? I'm like, no, I spoke to Michael, who's like this top marketing guy at Shuey Europe. Michael who? Like, just very abrupt and like, get out of my racetrack. And I was like, God. He's like, no, here's the email, Michael, whatever his surname is. He says, Michael, yes, yeah, how can I help you? And I was like, okay. Anyway, then he's like, I've arranged to get these visors and that done, proper race Marquez replica. He's like, cool, I don't have time to do it, but yeah, I'll set you up a workstation. I'm doing these helmets, you do these helmets. Great. It was fantastic. So I was prepping, these Marc Marquez helmets, gets the stickers, shows me how it's done, the tear off, where they go, how you measure it. Great. He did 4 Dennis On-Shoe helmets by the time I'd done 1 Mark helmet. So like, you're definitely not getting my job. I was like, no. Did the top break. Great. Then I arranged to meet with Marc Marquez one-on-one to sign the helmets and the visors in the hospitality. Great. So before that, I met Ollie Moto and we were walking around, and then I got the message saying, right, come to the hospitality now. Gee, sorry guys, run, get the helmet, get the visors. run into hospitality. I sat in that hospitality for just over an hour, waiting for more, come in 5 minutes. But this is the MotoGP paddock. This is what you got to expect.
Yeah.
Mark came in. He did some filming for the Ducati Lenovo show on Wednesday, where they do like this cup challenge thing. I've got some cool little snippets in that from behind the scenes, but I won't put it out there because it's all kind of private and I don't want to step on toes. And eventually Mark comes to me and now he's going to sign. So I've got this gold marker. I've tested this gold marker on everything I have in the house. I tested it on my phone before I got there, just, make sure it's working perfect. Great. Tries to sign the top of the helmet, doesn't work. So luckily I had the black mark. He signs the black mark on the helmets. Now it comes to the visors. Okay, use the gold thing. Signs him, and I didn't realize that the visors that they supply in the paddock are different to what you can buy. So it comes with like this clear film on it. So even a dark visor, when it rains, it disperses the water. So this Koki is now just fraught and it just melts away, and there's no signature. And Mark's like, I'm so sorry, but this is what it does. And I'm like, don't worry. And I had this whole speech lined up with Mark. I was going to be his best mate. I was going to tell him about you. I was going to tell him about us. I was going to solve the world's, like, everything. And then when he walked up to me, I was like, hey, Mark. I just turned into a proper fanboy. Anyway, so 6 visors, 2 helmets, kind of destroyed. What the hell am I going to do? Thursday night in the hotel room, scrubbing now this permanent marker off. Got them off anyway. Got them back to Mark. Very kindly re-signed everything for me in a white marker that worked. So big thank you to the Ducati team. Big thank you to Mark to have that kind of access, and that I am very, very, very grateful and thankful. So God, I was not impressed, but it turned out right in the weekend. So Oli Moto, sorry I had to cut our time short, but that's ultimately what happened. Gary VO2JX, glad to join you guys again. Looking forward to the first-hand info from Silverstone Rob. And then we've got everyone in the comments already joining. So, yes, I was there, got some really cool information, a little bit more one-to-one that I think we'll be able to share tonight. So looking forward to that. I'll start off, Paul, by I did see Rushay Mudley at the track on Thursday. Sadly, didn't pass his medical. Saw him after he failed his medical, and, what happened? Tell me. And he said, he did some riding back in South Africa. Had been back in South Africa for a couple of weeks, ridden twice. Said that it was feeling good and he can control the bike. The medical team literally just said, if you get a tank slapper, or if something happens, if you crash, it is so fragile that you could really do some serious permanent damage. So we kind of advise, which Paul, we've spoken to so many times. These riders, want to just forego any injuries and just want to hop on a bike and go. So I am glad, it's sad that he missed it, obviously, but I'm glad in a way that the medical team were honest with him enough to say, listen, don't risk it. Don't risk a permanent injury here just for one round. Give yourself, there's 2 weeks after this. By the time you get back to Aragon, you're going to be healed up. So tough decision, but right decision in the end.
Yeah, but it's also good for us to hear that, Rob, because we never get any of the behind the scenes stuff. So we just presume, okay, didn't pass the test. And you might have seen, I definitely saw a video of him riding here in South Africa. Then you think to yourself, but he's riding. What's going on? Now we know that. So the medical team actually do have a lot of say, and they do have the rider's best interests at heart. Yeah. So, that's good to hear. And the fact that they'll say to the guy, listen, we don't advise it. So we're not going to, it's not that they say, well, we don't advise it, but you make the decision. Because obviously they know if there is a comeback, it could be on them. So, that's good to hear. So, nice, as you say, not lacquer for him. And he would have gone there. I presume in the back of his mind, he had that little thing saying, you can feel it's not 100% or not 100%, not at a point yet where you should ride. But if they let me ride, I'm going to ride. And we've discussed that many times. So disappointing, but on the other side of the coin, could be better for him in 3 weeks' time in Aragon.
I think Silverstone's also a tough one. A couple of the riders, I don't want to say were complaining, but they were like, it's tough to come off the back of a holiday and go straight into a Silverstone. Almost 6 kilometer lap. The Moto 3 bikes, as much as I love that track, it's a 2-minute 10 lap. I love motorcycles, but I don't want to wait 10 seconds to watch a bike. So it is extreme. Every single MotoGP rider in that debrief, I mean, we'll talk about Bedzeki and that later, those carrying injuries, but every rider was like, you could see they had taken a beating. That track is physically and mentally demanding. So they all came back and went, she's come from a holiday summer break straight into this. it wasn't easy. So for Richer, again, that impact that Silverstone, that comes with Silverstone, again, I think the better decision.
Yeah, and Matt Burt was saying this is the track where the riders are at 100% on the throttle more than anywhere else. It's here, Austria and Japan are the three tracks where they're at full power the most. And then with the heat, and as you say, coming straight off a holiday, it is quite a challenge, but it's the same for everyone who's reasonably fit. So yeah,
that the riders say that, then but not even an hour later, you go back into the media center and you look out on the track and they're all on their bicycles doing 100 laps. I think it's a different level of human being, those guys. It really is. A big shout out to Mark Huckabee. I know it covers our faces and Paul's face here, but my brother Sean has put the link here to Mark Huckabee's social media channels, his Facebook, his Instagram. Mark has been amazing, and he supplied us some of the most incredible track photography from Silverstone this weekend. So a big thank you to Mark for helping us out with that. Really did give us more of that personal touch on our social media channels, that we're not just using the same regurgitated stuff that you see on all the other channels. We really got a nice personal touch there. So please go like and follow his social medias, because he's really helped in supporting us. So really appreciate it, Mark. Thank you so much. Olimoto, the two biggest problems with Silverstone are the size of the place and the length of the lap. Awesome, fast and flowing circuit though. And I spoke to a lot of the British guys, like Adam Child, very well-known journalist in the UK. And it's exactly that. The actual facilities in that are world-class. It's great. From a spectator point of view, it's just too widespread. It's like an 8-kilometer kind of radius. And if you want to go from this paddock to the fan zone, it's a 40-minute walk, or a 10-minute walk to the shuttle, then a 10-minute wait for the shuttle. It's just a big exercise, where like Le Mans, you could literally just walk the whole thing. You walk 45 minutes and you've walked the whole thing. Great viewing spots and stuff. I must say hats off to Silverstone, because I've been a very big critic over the last couple of years. I'm excited to go and watch motorcycle racing. I'll always be, but then I think of the process of Silverstone. Us as a journalist, we get a guest pass. I've got to park at the old paddock. I've got to walk 20 minutes to the shuttle. Wait, it's just and the vibe's not great. The weather was cocked last year, and this year they turned it around. I heard a lot of people, and Olimoto will be a testament to this, I think. Some of the things were made cheaper. There were more activations. It was more fan-friendly. They really ticked the box a little bit more in a lot of the areas, and I felt a bit more of a vibe. I saw a lot more people there. I don't know what the actual numbers are. Olimoto, maybe you've got, because I know Olimoto is very active on social media with the Silverstone page, kind of arguing the Donington, and but that's the biggest argument, is where does it go if it doesn't go to Silverstone? Donington's not equipped to handle the size of a MotoGP paddock anymore. So anyway, kudos to Silverstone. I think still not anywhere like a Mugello or any of that, but a lot better than in recent years.
Yeah, Robin, I wonder what the reason is, because I can't remember when, 3-4 weeks ago was Formula One. 300,000 people there over the weekend, packed. Now, I understand that the MotoGP racing has, for us diehards, it's been great, but it's definitely not the racing of 10 years ago. But still, why are they getting, what are they saying, 170,000? That's over the weekend, which is actually not bad, because last year I don't think they cracked 100,000. So that's quite a big improvement, the crowd up from now. Okay, so there's conflicting, but that might be on race day. But the point is, Formula One, just for Silverstone, is getting 3 times the. Now, Silverstone are obviously thinking, well, if we get that for Formula One, we can charge what we want, because people are buying the tickets. So we'll do the same at MotoGP. I think last year that bit them. So this year they've, as you say, they might have reassessed that a bit. But it just, I don't understand why they get such a crowd for Formula One, but not the same for, if it was close, 200,000 at MotoGP, I'd say they're doing something right. But clearly something's not gelling. When you say Le Mans, I've been to Mugello, I've been to Barcelona, it's unbelievable. Is it just the culture that because the Italians have a vested interest in 10 of the top riders, the Spanish have 10 of the, has it got to do with that? I can't believe it. But there again, Formula One, you've got 2 or 3 British guys doing very well. So maybe that's what it is, and all kudos to Cal for jumping in and filling in on the Honda, but he wasn't going to run at the front. So he might have attracted an extra couple of hundred people, but he wasn't going to draw in what a Rossi would have brought in. Or so I don't know. Is it that, are we now seeing the effects of, we've always said it, the passport to get a ride, but now we're seeing the opposite effect to get a spectator, so to say? I don't know if it's got anything to do with that.
Paul, it's the same question we always ask. And to finish on this topic, I break it down into a couple of areas. The first being, as you said, there's more British drivers in there, so there's more for the British fans to shout for. The second thing is, I mean, you've got like Aston Martin based at Silverstone. That is the Formula One team. You've got Red Bull Racing up the road, the Formula One team. You've got McLaren, the Formula One team. So you've got a lot more vented interest that on your doorstep. It's almost like a British championship in a way. The second thing that I think impacts MotoGP is, I look at me as a family man, and apparently the Formula One for like the Sunday race day grandstand ticket is like £300 or something. So you take your wife and your 2 kids, you have no luxury of doing Formula One and MotoGP in a month. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So I'm sure out of that 300,000 that were there at Formula One, let's say there's 30,000 that are like, I'd like to do both, but I have the finances to do one. And they're going to pick Formula One every day, again, because of that bigger interest in the British drivers and the British race teams there. So, I think they need to look at that. It's almost like it's set up to fail by having it so close to Formula One, which I don't understand. I know they do it because of the weather, and this time it worked out perfectly. But Johnny Martins is just talking Formula One. We'll end it there. You got to take the hints when you get them, Paul. But anyway, it was better. Enjoyed the vibe, but I still don't think they've signed another year at Silverstone until 2028. But the question is, where does it go if it doesn't go to Silverstone? There is nowhere else to go. So let's see. Paul, I'm going to jump straight into Brad Binder as a topic. Majority of us are South Africans here. I know there's a lot of Brad Binder supporters and stuff. So just kind of like the information and what I took out of the weekend. So a couple of things. First, again, that behind the scenes information that is not made as public as it should be, because I was at the track and I watched qualifying and I watched Brad just crumble in that qualifying, and I went, that's why I have no hair left, because I pulled it out. I was, again, the usual going like, what the F? Then eventually I'd shake my head and go, I'm at Silverstone. I'll find out in about an hour with a debrief, because the press releases and all that don't say any of this. And you'll never hear it unless you hear it from the horse's mouth. And then you'll only hear that if the journalists present think it's newsworthy enough to put it out. Obviously for me being the South African there, it would be news. So anyway, get to Brad's debrief and like, what happened in qualifying? You were slower than you were in the FP2 session that happens, which is full fuel tank, like a race simulation. Now you qualifying simulation and you go a tenth slower. Like, what the hell? So Johnny Martins, hey Paul, what's happened to your damn ugly red captain?
Johnny, let's talk in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, have the debrief with Brad, and okay, Brad, what happened? And he's like, well, went out on the number 1 bike, and on my first flying lap going down the back straight, there was a technical issue. No, I don't know if you just said an issue. He managed to roll back to the pits, climbed on his spare bike, went straight out, and he said as soon as he went out, he felt like it was skew, like the front end, it just felt skew, like the headstock or handlebars or something. Not major, but at this level, you've got to. So, okay, that didn't feel quite right. Then when you started using the ride-out device and that, it wasn't set up like properly. It wasn't working the way it should or could, and just very weird. And that's ultimately what halted his time attack, because he was actually, besides the crash that he had earlier, there were signs that this could be a good weekend, or he could certainly get into Q2. I think in the FP2 session he was in 10th. There was certainly this, and speaking to Bjorn as well, there's this, okay, we can get into Q2. Yeah, this is, if we can get into Q2, we can have a good weekend. Let's go. And then you hear, and he's telling me these, and I'm like, are you joking?
Yeah.
And other than from him, I didn't hear it anywhere else until I did the video that we put out on Motorradio's YouTube and Facebook. Nowhere else was it mentioned. There was no, any of the other platforms mentioning it. So there's just Brad looking like an idiot qualifying in 18th. But the fact is Yeah, and you know, I don't want to be that guy pointing fingers, because I'm sure there's two sides to every story and whatever. But Brad's not one to, excuse the language, but bullshit anyone. So the fact that this has happened, I look at it and I go, and I know that team, and I know it's a professional team, they're great guys, but how do you have a spare bike that something skew on the front and the ride-out device is not set up right? That bike should be prepped and ready to go exactly like his number one bike, maybe with one or two changes if they've got a plan, and then go. And then that ultimately set up his whole weekend. Yeah, great ride 18th to 8th. But, you know, your weekend is determined by qualifying. Get that right first and foremost. And they didn't.
So what could it have been if you had qualified in 8th? Could you have been racing with Pedro 4th, 5th, 6th? You know, so certainly, unfortunately, once again, another weekend where we can't find out. And you know what you say, Rob, now that's the kind of stuff that on every other weekend when you are not in the paddock, we don't hear about that. So we just, Brad, what's going on? But here's the story that so-called professional team, and I'm sure you've seen them, they are very professional, but it seems like things are, you know, left hand, right hand, not really communicating. As you say, I could understand if the bike was set up for a wet setup, but you said the weather was unbelievable. I don't think there was even a cloud in the sky the whole weekend. So it's not like they'd set that second bike up for just in case the weather turned. So really a tough weekend once again for him. And, you know, look, as far as we're aware, his career in MotoGP is over. So even if he wins the next 5 races, I don't think that's going to change. But still, it's not doing him and it's not doing his confidence any good to not know exactly where he stands within the team, which is how it comes across, that they kind of, you didn't do your job. Well, that's okay. At least he had a bike to ride. Just seems like to me that professionalism just seems to be, if lacking is the right word, and I'm talking from someone who's never even been in that pit, so probably talking absolute garbage, but it just comes across like that. And how many people have commented on our show over the last 2 years, Rob? Why does Brad spend so much time in the pits during qualifying? You know, and now we're finding out why, because he has little issues that are never publicly spoken about. You know, and this is an exact case where if you weren't there, no one would have known.
It's a tricky one. You know, I've been lucky enough to be in the KTM hospitality and his pit and everything in years gone by, and always felt very welcomed and accommodating. And I can tell you from Le Mans and even last year, I don't go anywhere near there. I go near there to try and kind of, like, I had a lunch with Bjorn and Brad on the Friday, and that was about it. It's like, I don't want to go into the KTM truck. I don't want to go into the KTM pit. I don't want to go sit in Brad's KTM truck, because that kind of family kind of team vibe is gone for me. And that's me speaking honestly. It just feels like it's gone. It just feels like, you know, even Pit Priory used to walk past him and, you know, he would give you nothing. It's just like they're just getting on with the job now, and it's, you know, everyone else must just piss off, and it's just such a horrible environment. But anyway, in many ways, it's a good thing that Brad's not going to be exposed to that environment anymore. As I said, I had lunch with Brad on the Thursday, on the Friday, I should say. So it's always hard because you get very limited time with him, and, you know, I don't want to spend that time just asking him, so what's happening next season, and, you know, pen and pencil out. As a mate, I want to catch up with him. So, you know, it was nice. Spoke a lot about the families and what he'd done in his holidays and stuff, which is great. So I didn't get any kind of firm confirmation about next year. I mean, the only firm kind of confirmation that I can take out of it is some of the words that he would use sounds like he's definitely not going to be in that paddock next year. And then just speaking to some of the, you know, the very well-informed people within the paddock, is that BMW deal is legit, and that seems to be his final destination. So I wish I could say and offer more than that. Unfortunately, I can't. But good to see Brad a little bit more upbeat compared to what I saw him at Le Mans. But at the same time, sitting there going, I think just as frustrated as we are, going, I just don't know what I'm going to get when I climb on this motor. I just don't know what I'm going to get. I just don't. You know, it's not that same kind of energy and passion that he used to get. I think it is a case of, right, just sit there. There's your toys. Play with them. You're not getting any more toys. You know, Pedro is definitely the blue-eye boy, and I fully understand that. But even he came in and had some stern words for KTM in his debriefs, which we'll talk about a little later. So that whole exercise, yeah, I think it's not a bad thing that Brad's getting out of there, because if we look at our Darren smiling and happy again, and Brad, Darren's absolutely loving life. I want that for Brad, and he wants that, and that means out of the MotoGP paddock, then so be it.
Just a quick question, Rob. Did you see Brad after Sunday's race? Because let's be quite honest, that was one of his best weekends in terms of race on Sunday. Did you see him afterwards? And if so, how was his demeanor? Was he as excited as we were?
Yeah, I did the debrief with him on the Sunday, and I asked him about the front end. Both him and Pedro had crashed on Friday with the front end, and they just seemed to get better. They, watching out on track, they were making up all their time on the front end. The rear, this balance of the bike that Brad still talks about is not quite there. He said, we made a change on the front end, a lot better. I want more margin, but there's no more margin in the front, so we have to try and find it somewhere else, which is a bit frustrating. But it's a frustrating figure. He's there going, yeah, it's cool, 18th to 8th, it's cool, but I'm not an 8th place rider. I don't want to finish 8th. 8th is not good for me. Especially looking at Pedro, and like you said, I think knowing that if he had a better qualifying with better luck and the bike prep and stuff, there's no reason why he couldn't have been racing, or at least closer to Pedro, which is in the fight for a top 5, which is a good result for KTM at this point in time, and it would have been a much better result for Brad. The fact that he's passing, 8 of the world's best, using that tire to get there, and then still holding off. You look at the guys that he beat. He's beating guys that are getting really good rides next season. So you can see that's all our exact frustration, our exact luck. Well, how's Mia getting that ride, and how's Bastianini getting that ride when Brad's beaten both of them the last? He's got that same frustration there, but what does he do about it? He's got to just sit there, suit and tie, be the professional man that he is. Kind of, he's a little bit more open with like the mechanical troubles and that. You can see he kind of like just outs that a little bit more, whereas in the past I think he would disguise that a bit. But Sunday, happy but not happy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So it's very frustrating.
Yeah, and as you say, the guys there that he's beating that have got good rides, but I think he's at a point now where he's not going to let it get him down, because as far as we're aware, it's a done deal. So move on. Now he's got to finish this year as well as he can, and then look towards next year.
The only other thing that coming out of it is, okay, Brad knows the Michelin tires. Speaking to everyone in the paddock that I spoke to, multiple, great, knowledgeable people, it all boils down to one thing for the likes of Brad, Miller, Toprak. Toprak is suffering with it more than anyone at the moment. Is the Michelin tire it's been designed for the Spanish rider, for that very direct, like a Marc Marquez, a very direct, point and squirt, get it in there, that kind of rider. Not much feel. It either works or it doesn't. You're either upright or you're down. It's not I don't want to say it's not a rider's tire, but it's very much that Spanish DNA, and a lot of people have said it's a Marc Marquez tire. If you want to call it that, you can, but look what Aprilia, like Raul Fernandez. I think Raul Fernandez is another one that's benefited from this new tire, because his style is very much that direct Spanish. The Spanish do that figure of 8 training, that's the kind of riding they do. They don't do super motard and, so if you look at Brad, the old backing in style, the loose, felt the bike underneath him, could feel what the tire was doing. Toprak relies on feel. And my question to Toprak on Sunday was, because he finished 40-something seconds behind. It was a disaster for him. And I'm like, are you making any headway with these Michelins? And he was, to be honest, no. They are like rock hard. I have no feeling with them. When I brake, it just feels like I'm on ice. Pecco Bagnaia just said this week, you look at his crash. He crashed. He tucked the front coming out of the corner.
Out of a corner, yeah, correct. Yeah.
There's just these weird things with the tires. And then, out of this weekend, I learned about graining. So like the Ducatis, when the tire heats up, they don't degrade or lose grip because of degradation. They lose grip because of grading. The tire overheats at those points. And then you saw, I don't know if you saw it, Paul, on the weekend, they showed a radar with Mark's tire temperature. So like down the straight, it cools down a lot. And then in the corners, it goes up to 160 degrees. And I don't know if everyone else saw that.
Yeah, I
And
didn't see
what came out of this weekend is, apart from Aprilia's flexibility and it just can turn on a dime, especially in the fast corners, is its ability to manage the heat of the tires, not the wear of the tires, the heat. Because once those Michelins get hot, they get this grain, and then they just lose grip. So it's not that the tire is degrading or chunks are coming out, it just loses grip because of heat, and the Aprilia hold it. So those kind of things you learn. But the biggest thing that I can take out of this weekend is the Millers, the Brads, the Top Racks, all those riders that rely on feel more than anything. You could almost, in a sense, go to Alex Rins and John Mir, probably why he's crashing so much, is that Michelin tire. Now, my only concern with going to World Superbikes is now, Michelin are going to that paddock along with Brad. My only kind of positive is that I'm hoping the more production-based World Superbike, it's not as rigid, it's not as prototype, it's not as one-directional as a current MotoGP bike with aero and everything, might, not emphasize the tires problems as much as currently.
Yeah, the other side of the coin is Brad's got years of experience on the Michelin, which might carry over to give him a little bit of an advantage in that he can read the situation, analyze, not overcome, adapt. That's the word, adapt better to the way that tire, as you say, degrades, grains, whatever it does. Maybe he'll have that little bit more experience, so he'll be able to adjust to that easier than someone who's not used to it, like a Top Rack who's come into MotoGP and clearly just cannot figure this out. He's not a 2-second a lap rider behind. Yes, and Ralph Fernandez was very special on Sunday. Give him credit, he really was. But Top Rack is not 2 seconds a lap worse than him, and that was the outcome. So it's a bit of a problem, and I don't want to, we don't want to blame Michelin, but it mustn't detract from the racing. Which is kind of what it's doing now. Whether it was doing that for Ducati last year and Mark was the only one who could adapt to the tire or adapted better, I don't know. But it seems like this year, it's especially this new tire, which is 4 rounds in. It's certainly the Aprilias, whether they've adapted better or it suits their bike better, it's definitely benefited them way more than anyone else. But then the converse is when you hear what Alex Marquez said, he said he thinks Ducati have actually caught up to Aprilia. So it's kind of it's a double-edged sword. But I think this weekend, obviously tires, you were there, you saw it especially for the guys, like you said, that rely on that feel. But definitely for the Aprilias, it just suited their bike. I mean, they were really dominant, and all credit to Ralph Fernandez. We've discussed it. Not our favorite rider on this show, but certainly putting us to shame in terms of when we said before he signed his contract, or he needs to show us what he can do. Well, he's definitely another guy who stepped up to the plate.
Yeah, a couple of other talking points that I got out of it is Alex Marquez, exactly like you said. He came in and said, I think we've closed the gap. The Ducati's got better. And look, it's all doom and gloom now. Even I watched some of the other podcasts earlier, and Ducati are over, Mark's season's over. It's like you forget the guy won 4 or 3 on the bounce before. You know what I mean? So we'll talk about Mark later. I mean, he just was not there mentally or physically, I don't think, or more mentally than anything else. But yeah, you got Alex Marquez saying we've closed the gap, and then you got DJ Antonio who came into the debrief saying, I don't know why these guys keep saying that. We're further away than we've ever been. And I keep telling Ducati. So it's those kind of things that it's great to be there and stand in front of the riders and hear that kind of conversation come out. But we'll get on to Ducati and Raul in a little bit later. One thing I want to end off with the KTM conversation. A bit of positive news is Paul Espargaro was a replacement rider this weekend for Maverick Vinales. Quickly on that subject, there was a debrief with Gunther Steiner. Very open and honest conversation. He said, no, listen, we haven't sacked Maverick Vinales, but we can't kind of just let him get away with this and then not be repercussions. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to iron out. And we hadn't got to a point of kind of agreeing yet. So wasn't fit to put him in this round. So Paul Espargaro's there. And what happens is, it's going to happen. Gunther Steiner openly said, I've never dealt with anything like this, even in my Formula One days. I've never dealt with a rider like this. So we can talk forever about that, but that's what happened. But a positive from Paul Espargaro is he came into every debrief, and obviously he was asked a lot about 850 because him and Augusto Fernandez miles off the pace on the thousands. And they both said it's so hard going from the 850 to the 1,000, to make, and more so the Michelin or the Pirellis to the Michelin. That was the biggest thing they said. And they couldn't really give more. They kind of asked, like, which one do you prefer? And I was like, okay, well, we got to bite our tongue here, but you'll wait. But one thing Paul Espargaro did say is, we are all in for a massive surprise with this new 850. He said they are fast, they are fun. The Pirelli tires are great. He says you are going to see a lot of surprises. So that kind of got me excited, going like, as you said, I don't want to say it's got stale. I'll never use stale and boring, but it certainly has become this Aprilia, Ducati, Mark, Bez, Martin, Aral thrown in, like, one directional in a way, kind of like the Michelin tire. Yeah. But he did kind of say this is going to throw a few curveballs next year. But on the diverse side of that, I sit there and I want to put my head through a wall and go, can you imagine if Brad got this chance? Can you imagine Brad's put in all this effort with KTM, and then Digi and Alex Marquez reap the reward of all his hard work simply because the tire manufacturers change and KTM are then competitive, and you know what I mean? That kind of ground me a bit.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob, and that will really be throwing salt into the wound if that does happen next year.
I think it will.
On that subject, listening to the Matt Oxley podcast, he doesn't think the KTM is going to be competitive next year.
Oh, really?
That was his opinion. He said he can't see it happening, but he once again said he hopes he's proved wrong. Because like all of us, we don't want to see one manufacturer that's really struggling. We're going on like KTM are the worst bike. They're not. At the moment, Yamaha are by far the worst bike. However, our vested interest in KTM, and I think KTM as a collective, up until last year, even 2024 was a good year. 2025, since then, and we know that was their financial story, they've gone backwards. Everyone, I'd say Yamaha have kind of stagnated, but everyone else has gone forward. So we want to see that. We want to see 5 competitive manufacturers on the grid, not 2 plus every now. So let's hope that everyone benefits next year. But it could be, like we've said, Brad's put in so much effort. We've discussed it numerous times. He's been loyal to KTM to a fault, and let's hope that it's not to his detriment that next year Digi and Alex Marquez start winning races. Well, imagine how Pedro Acosta would feel.
Speaking about Pedro Acosta, his debriefs were lively as always. Comes in, hello boys. There's a couple of goals there, but everything's hello boys. Thanks boys. And it's so hard having they're called the media scrum. So you'll have Pedro Acosta here with the Spanish media, and then you're here trying to talk to like an Ayagura or a Toprak or a Bez in English. Right next, and they talk very softly, and Pedro Acosta and the Spanish are just the other journalist. Shh. I just stand there and laugh about it. But anyway, with the Pedro Acosta, his sentiments were pretty much. He came in and he said, in the holiday, I had very important meetings with KTM. I said, we have to get better over race weekends. We kind of just, as we start the weekend is what we finish. We don't find any progression. We have to do something different to find progress. We don't progress enough. I set a good time on Friday, and then on Sunday I'm doing the same time. We don't progress. And then the second thing is we've got to sort out this reliability, and he used some, more flamboyant words. Yeah. Then it was obviously asked has there been any, detraction from the mechanical side? He said, yeah, we have lost a little bit of power. Definitely. They've detuned the bikes and whatever, but it's not like we're losing the 0.3, 0.4 that we're off purely from that, but we definitely are losing a little bit. So yeah, Pedro Acosta is still standing his ground, still I appreciate the work and that they're doing, but they have to do better. It's this is not good enough. I'm riding Mamili off. He's a big ambassador of Brad Binder's as well, which is great to see, but he's just like they need to do good. So it's great to have this guy inside there kind of. And I think that's also why that whole environment has become a bit more miserable, because they're being challenged now and they don't like to be challenged. The Austrians, and they don't like to be challenged than they are by this little Spanish kid who they've lost. But on the flip side of that, I think they're very lucky in the business that they've done to get Alex Marquez and especially DJ Antonio more than anything.
But Rob, that's good to hear from Pedro, because he, when you look at a Fabio Quartararo, he's just given up. You know, last year he should have won the race. He qualified on pole. A year later, he's nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, he's got no vested interest in Yamaha. We know he's going to Honda. He's given up. He's not an asset to them. And exactly what you said now about Acosta, he knows he's going to Ducati, but he sounds like he's the one who's trying to motivate KTM to do better. Now, to me, that's a true champion, because he could easily say, well, this is what I've got. What I do on Fridays, what I do on Sunday, well, so be it. But that's not in his DNA. His DNA says, I work for you. We're a team. Let's make this better. So I'm very glad to hear that, because you can see his fighting spirit on the bike. Absolutely no doubt. But it's good to hear that he's trying to, and I'm not saying he's trying to keep them all motivated. He's motivating them with him being who he is and challenging them, which I agree with you, they don't like that. But imagine where they would be if they allowed him to just sit back like Fabio Quartararo. It would be very disappointing, I believe, because they put all their eggs in his basket. Now they need to listen to what he has to say. So that's good to hear that over the, going forward, he's trying to be as competitive as he can make them. So that's nice. And I think you see the results when he does get a 4th and a 5th place. He's riding the wheels off that KTM, and he's not giving up. He's determined, and that's, to me, consummate professional, that he knows why he's there, and he'll give it his all until the day, that 22nd of November, when he's run his last race. Then he's no longer a KTM man. Until then, they wanted him, he wanted them, and they've agreed on that. And that's nice to hear. Now, that to me is such a true professional.
No, he's a great character, and him and Brad get along so well, and it's because they're both great characters. So I think KTM have also been kind of kicked with the Maverick Vinales bug, and to an extent Bastianini as well, because he's also his debriefs are also like, just everything's not good enough. It's, you know what I mean, like a bit miserable compared to the others. Brad and Pedro were saying it's not good enough, but let's do something with it. So it was great to see that. It really was. Answer this question here just quickly from Jacques Claessens. On what grounds do Ducati give Mir a ride for next year? Can someone please explain what did he do to stay in MotoGP? Never mind a Ducati. So Jacques, I had this conversation with a couple of people in the paddock, and it's not a conversation. I just bring it up in conversation. And basically it comes down to, obviously, Joan Mir, MotoGP world champion from 2021 or whenever it was, where he won that season, won one race, was the most consistent rider. So yeah, he's got it. He'll always have that badge. Great. But those that know, kind of, I don't think we will ever really fully accept it. Anyway, the second thing, there's a fantastic rider there. There's a rider with talent, with speed. To me, doesn't know how to control it, which is very frustrating, where a guy like Brad does know how to control it a bit more. But ultimately what it comes down to is Gresini, Ducati, it's in their DNA. They having the Marquez brothers have really kind of like boosted their love for Spanish riders. Joan will come with probably Estrella Galicia, because he had that partnership back when he was at Suzuki. So he probably comes with that little bit of extra money. And the third thing is probably he's reuniting with Frankie Carcetti, the same crew chief that he won the MotoGP world title with. So you've got a Carcetti kind of going, no, well, go for me. I'll get the best out of him, and we'll make this work. And a lot of people in the paddock are saying, watch out for Joan Mir on that Ducati and on those Pirelli tires. He could seriously be this guy, like this waken the monster type thing. So I'm still not 100% sold. I know there's a fantastic rider there. I watch him out on track, and there is, but he doesn't know how to balance things. He knows how to do that. Brad can go there and do that. Marquez can go there, and Joan Mir can do that for me. He doesn't know how to back it off. He doesn't know how to figure out problems. He doesn't know. I don't think he's a developer. I don't think he's developed the bike. If I listen to how Luca Marini talks, even Diego Moreira, compared to Mir just talks about his race and what he didn't have. Yeah. Whereas Marini is like more methodical and goes this. Even Moreira, I was very impressed with Moreira this weekend. Very mature for a young rider. So yeah, I think it's a financial, as Sticky Wiggy says, Spanish passport. And yeah, it's just got that little bit more over Brad. I think that MotoGP title probably hangs over more, and the connection with Frankie Carcetti, frustratingly.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, my personal opinion, if Brad and him were on the same machinery, regardless of what it is, Brad would beat him 8 out of 10 times, regardless of whether they were on Ducatis, KTMs, Yamahas, Hondas, doesn't matter if they were on equal machinery. And my other point that I'd like to make is you see no fight from Jean Mir, or very seldom. Yeah, because he's always in the bushes. But you take a guy like De Antonio, he's quite happy to mix it up with anybody. And Mark Marquez has been his target for more than a few races this season. I just can't see Jean Mir doing that. When he won his championship, he was consistent. I don't remember him having dogfights with Alex Rins and Quartararo. There probably were one or two, but he was consistent. He won that championship by finishing second to fourth in, I think, almost every round.
Yep.
MotoGP's progressed from then. You need to have that balance between aggression and assertiveness, and you don't see that from him. As soon as he overrides, which I'm going to say is the aggression, he crashes. The assertiveness is the De Antonio, not scared to race with someone. We don't see that with Mir. Maybe the Honda doesn't allow it because of where it is in the bigger scheme of things versus the Ducatis and the Aprilias. But I just cannot see it from him. So putting him on that bike, it must be a money thing. I don't agree with the story of it being a Spanish rider. Yes, Carchedi's a big thing, but I just think that he's obviously got a very good manager, and they've organized a deal. Whether it is Estrella Galicia or whomever it is, we'll see next year. I think he's bringing a fair chunk of change to them, and that certainly sways the decision. That to me, and then I do agree. The thing with Carchedi, like with having a Davide Brivio in your camp, there's some people who just know how things work, and that maybe Carchedi has said, listen, he's obviously had chats with Jean Mir on the QT. I think that could be a swaying factor. But me personally, I just cannot see how it happened. But it's not our decision. So let's see how it pans out next year.
The famous words of Brad Binder, it is what it is. Wayne Taylor, and this is where we'll take the conversation to now. Poor old Raul doesn't seem to be many people's favorite. Just seems like a very boring, overlooked winner. No real hype around him. So I can tell you now, from being in the paddock from Thursday to Sunday, at all times, morning, afternoon, night, I've literally spent my life in that paddock. Mark Marquez, people waiting, queued outside his truck. Fabio Quartararo, people waiting, queued outside his truck. Pecco Bagnaia, people waiting, not as big, but certainly a big fan base. Like I said, the likes of Mir, Marini, Iagura getting a lot more attention, but people still, Iagura will walk in that paddock, and people will just think, no disrespect, I don't mean this in any bad way, but people will think he's a Japanese mechanic. He just doesn't look like a MotoGP rider. He's not wearing the flat peak cap with all the sponsors and Monster Energy, and that's what really stands out from other riders. Bright colors, and you can see them from a mile away. He's got his Trackhouse shirt on, black pants, black shoes. Like, hi, sorry, can I just get through? It's just like this little, even in his debriefs, this little timid schoolboy is standing in front of the headmaster, but a very switched on man. I'll get on to him later. Very, very switched on. I think people realize I switched on him. But Raul Fernandez, another guy, he's got this like one of those little push scooters, and he can just go wherever he pleases, and not many people stop him. He's, there's an odd person, obviously, they recognize him, and I think his stock is going to slowly rise now the more that he puts these performances in. But you don't see a lot of Raul Fernandez shirts and caps around. There is not enough of Raul Fernandez compared to what we're seeing on track now that warrants seeing what we're seeing on track. One of the biggest takeaways I took from this weekend, Paul, I've never been a big fan of Raul Fernandez. I'm a fan of all MotoGP riders, but I've never quite had this connection with him. I never enjoyed his debriefs that I've been to, even in Le Mans earlier this year, as recent as that. I didn't like how he would come into debriefs and go, the team, the clutch, the team, the typical kind of, Maverick Vinales kind of spoiled little kid throwing his toys at the car. And this is a kid that had everything handed to him. Yeah. Yes, I know family sacrifice or whatever, great, but he got into, he's had really good rides. He was in the best team in Moto2, lost it to Remy Gardner, but won a lot of races. Brilliant. Went into KTM MotoGP. I don't know what happened with that relationship. Now that we're seeing more of KTM's bad side, I could see both parties. I could see that relationship not working now in hindsight, because they're both just tough personalities. What I saw at Silverstone this weekend was a mature rider, a much more mature person, rider, everything. After that sprint race crash, in the debrief, I was expecting a, and he came in there and he just said, like, one of the first things I want to do is apologize to the team. I had a little bit of a clutch. The clutch wasn't feeling great. That kind of hampered my start. Then, it kind of messed my plan a bit. So I wanted to push. I over pushed and I crashed. And I'm sorry to the team, because we had the pace for a podium today. I'm very sorry. He just spoke a lot more maturely. Everything was a lot more mature about him. And then we saw the ride that he put on Sunday. That's maturity at its finest. I do think there are some loopholes there of him getting lucky in many ways. He came out and said it was his frustration from what happened on Saturday that really motivated him and pushed him to just dominate the race the way he did. I also think the fact that he didn't go through the feeling of tire drop off that the others did on Saturday, he didn't have that feeling. So Sunday, he knew he had to manage his tires, but not to the extent. You're speaking to a couple of the riders afterwards, they maybe over-managed their tire on Sunday because of the feeling. The feeling was so bad on Saturday, Paul. All the riders were like, we've never in our life felt tires drop like this. After 4 laps, you had nothing. It was like riding on a wet tire that was falling apart. They've never experienced. So they all went into Sunday's race like thinking, I've really got to babysit this tire. Like really, really. Di Antonio, I think, over managed that tire on Sunday. I think he could have been better. Brad also said, I maybe over managed my tire, but I could have gone a little bit sooner. I think Jorge Martin, okay, the bad start, we'll talk about that, but he over managed his tire, whereas Raul just went and said, I'll deal with what's going to come, because he didn't have that. But either way, to go beat the world's best, I mean, he won by 2.5 seconds at the end of the day. That was him managing and rolling off. At one stage, it was 4.5 seconds. I mean, he was, for a couple of laps, he was a second faster than anyone else. And I'm sure you and everyone else in the comments here were all sitting there going, oh, this is very cute, Raul. This is very cute. You have your 5-second lead after 4 or 5 laps. That's cute. But where are you going to – this is Silverstone, my bad. This is 6 kilometers. This is 5,000 corners, This is going to bite you in the arse. It didn't. Fantastic performance, the way he spoke after the race. So, Wayne, I agree with you. I don't think he necessarily gets the praise and the followership and the fan base that he deserves. But I think that's with good reason, because up until now, I don't think he's warranted it as much because of his immaturity and some of the things that he's done. But there's a seriously good MotoGP rider there. Yes, he's on an Aprilia at the height of its powers. So he's on the best machinery to do what he's doing. You still have to do it. And speaking, I was lucky enough to be in the Trackhouse hospitality for the Sunday morning breakfast. They invite all the press to come for a breakfast, which is great. And I was speaking to one of the people that is still involved with the team that was there when Darren was in that team. Remember, it used to be RNF Racing. It's now Trackhouse. And I was talking about the Raul thing, and they said, at one point he was definitely not on the table for being re-signed. And that's when his results kind of kicked in. At the beginning of this year, he started putting the performances. And that's when the conversation started. And ultimately, they re-signed him purely because, using the exact words, it's like, well, Rob, we've put 4 years or 3 years of time, energy, and money into this kid. Now we're just going to let him go at the peak of his powers. Just makes no business sense. That's why they've ultimately kept him. So, listen, kudos to him. Fantastic race on Sunday. If he brings that more often than not, he's going to be a very hard rider to beat. And from a personal point of view, well done. The maturity's there. I don't know if he's a sports psychologist or if he's changed something, but a much better overall rider than what I've seen in the past.
Yeah, definitely. And, going back to Olimoto's point, he created his own drama when he moved from Moto2 to MotoGP by shooting his mouth off, telling everyone how he was going to be the best KTM, and then, walking out of KTM after one season, and then doing the same thing that first year at Aprilia, telling everyone what he was going to do, and he didn't deliver. And then he used to drop his lip and I'll tell you who the sports psychologist is that he's dealing with. It's Davide Brivio.
Yeah.
Because he's taken this oak and he's taken Ayagura. He knows how to manage them. If you think back, Rob, 2 years ago in Aprilia when Maverick and Elish had a great first half of the year, then it fell apart. And we said Aprilia need to manage this, and they didn't. Now we've got a guy like Davide Brivio who knows how to manage the dynamic, whether it's the individual or the collective, doesn't matter. He knows how to do it. I'm telling you, I don't want to say he's 90% of what's changed in that team, but certainly he's a major factor. And it bodes very well for Honda next year. I don't know, he's going to have his hands full dealing with Quartararo. But he seems like a guy that, because I think Raul Fernandez is not too dissimilar to Quartararo last season. So I think that bodes well for them. And I think what he's done in that team now is he's got Raul Fernandez to a point where he understands. Yes. You don't have to don't let your mouth tell everyone how good you are. Ride the bike. And he's got enough talent. We've never doubted that. So I think that's a big change. Obviously, I joke when I say that's his sports psychologist. He might be seeing someone. But I think that, we always talk about the team dynamic. And we've mentioned it with KTM having their dramas over the last, let's say, 10 months or so. This is the exact opposite, where you see someone pulling a team together.
Yes.
And I think that's very important. So, going forward for him, Raul, that is, I think he understands he's on the right path. It helps that he's got a bike and tires that work beautifully. But like you said, he's still got to get the job done. And he's doing that so that, once again, like with Bezeki at the beginning of the year, that self-confidence just goes up a level. So now he needs to contain it, which is not quite a Jorge Martin where he's going to be explosive, but I think he's getting to a point where he's going to be very dangerous. He didn't have a great start to the year, but certainly he's matured into this ride. And unfortunately, or fortunately, now we've got to say, at the moment, he fully deserves to keep his ride for next year. Absolutely no question. Possibly to the detriment of, at one stage, there was like a 1% chance that Brad could have been going to Trackhouse. But he's ridden himself into the position, no doubt.
And a big hats off to Trackhouse as well. I fully agree with you that Brivio has been the glue that's brought that all together, and he's been a big reason for that. I was lucky enough to see Justin Marks, the owner of the team, in the hospitality on the way out, and said hello, shook his hand, thank you for the breakfast, and well done. Because again, speaking to this person, and they were like, Rob, you don't realize, what they inherited when they bought the team. It was in shambles. They've still got one person doing 4 jobs to save budget, but they've now got to the point where it was a team massively making massive loss, struggling to find sponsors and whatever, finding the Golf for one round, Superfile for one round. Superfile have now come in as the title sponsor, the main sponsor, 5-year contract or whatever it is. They're now looking at hiring more people, so that whole conversation has improved. They've got 2 fantastic riders. Let's not joke around. They could potentially win a MotoGP World Championship this year with Ayagura still in there, certainly top 3, winning races. So that whole conversation is fantastic. You remember that RNF Yamaha team, Dobby and Darren finishing law. You know what I mean? It's the exact same team, and a lot of the personnel are still there, from the chef in the hospitality to a lot of the crew working the bikes. So big kudos to them. Big kudos to Justin Marks, Ayagura. It's like, as I said, he's just in the debrief. So, and this person helped me understand it more, because I was like, I really think you should get Ayagura some media training, and they were like, no, not at all, because that's what makes Ai special. Ai he's very cultured, so he's Japanese through and through. So his culture is not going to change. He's not, he doesn't go out jolling. He goes and has a good time. He lives his life, but he doesn't want money. It's very Japanese cultured. So when he's in that debrief, and I mean this with all due respect, but this person said there's some personalities in there that he doesn't quite get on with. I don't want to say not like or respect, but doesn't quite get on with, because they try and, journalists, some of the questions are just the dumbest things I've ever heard. And they're like, what are you trying to do, man? There's a human being across the team. It's just really stupid. And I picks up on this. So if you ask a stupid question, you're gonna get a stupid answer from I. This was a question by a good mate of mine, and I didn't quite understand it. So what did you think of the London, doing the London thing on the Thursday? It was good. What was good about it? It was good. What do you want him to say?
Yeah.
I'm going to talk anyway. Just like some said, but he's very direct. And if you get a short answer from him, you're probably not in his good books. If he gives you 5, 6 kind of words, he's elaborating a bit more.
Doing well.
You've asked a good question, and you're doing well. And this person said he's that methodical with everything. The team love him. The way he goes about his race weekend, the way he looks at, he doesn't have a riding assistant like most others. He does, but not to the same kind of level. But he's very methodical, and he's so cultured, and nothing's going to break that. Because then I said, I can understand why he's gone to Yamaha, because as a Japanese rider, that's your dream come true. Yeah. And this person said, well, ultimately that, but also because he felt he had done it. Because he's Japanese culture, if you don't get offered something you feel you deserve to be at least in the conversation with, it's like a slap in the face, and they take that, they take that personally. So when Aprilia didn't come with this factory contract, they take it as, well, okay, I'm not wanted.
Yeah.
And in many ways, he had a trackhouse contract, obviously it was there, but he wants to be a factory rider. It's not about the money. He wants to be a factory rider. And Yamaha came with a factory contract. So it was also good to learn those kind of things and have those conversations with people that deal with us day in, day out. This is their life, and hearing those kind of things. So again, very impressed with Igor. I love everything about the kid. So respectful. I did that one video walking through the paddock, and he was there, and he always finds time for everyone. And he's just, even if you look, whenever he stands with fans or everything, he's got his hands behind his back, because he doesn't want to feel like he's touching anyone inappropriately, or like there was the one guy in the hero walk, and it was a bit of an uncomfortable thing. If I don't know if you got the live hero walk stream, if you find it somewhere, go watch it. This presenter goes, "Hey, how are you?" and he wants to shake his hand, and I's already got his arm behind his back, and I's like, well, I don't have to, it's not Japanese culture to shake your hand, or so he reluctantly shakes his hand. So it's good to see and understand these riders and how they approach things differently, and their culture, and that was another big learning of mine from this past weekend. So it's something that I wish everyone in this chat and more fans could witness, because really is an eye opener.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just goes to show those little personal nuances that everyone's got. Brad's got his South Africanisms, and Ralph Fernandez has got his Spanishisms, and so it's good to hear that, because, as I say, we don't see the behind the scenes. We see what is televised, and only that, where you get so much insight by being there that, you should just talk the whole 2 hours that we're going to be on here. But, it helps us to understand a little bit more of what's really going on behind the scenes, because the on-track stuff, we can all see it. Yeah, we can't see that Brad's bike is skew, and we can't see the tire degradation as it happens. So you need to be there to hear that. But once you mention it, suddenly we can say, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, absolutely insightful.
Comment here from Gareth van der Kerk. I was at the GP this weekend. First time was sat at turn 1. I can tell you the TV doesn't do it justice. The sound is incredible. Your chest and the ground vibrate. So Gareth, and I'm sorry I didn't see you. I don't think I've ever met you, but it would have been nice to see you, because turn 1 was kind of like it was the easiest point from the paddock to get to turn 1, or the other side is that final couple of that last chicane and the 2 right-handers onto the front straight. So I sat at that turn 1 and fully agree with you, Gareth. It is. I wish, and if I was a billionaire, I would probably pay for every MotoGP fan's ticket. Certainly in this chat, if I won the lottery, everyone's going to MotoGP to experience it the way that I do. That's for sure. You can't beat that sound, that smell. That I work for an electric motorcycle brand, and I love the brand that I work for. It doesn't belong on a racetrack. Does not belong on a racetrack. It belongs on the road. It makes the road a much better place to be on. But on a racetrack, nothing beats that. So it does. It goes through your chest. I can watch 100 laps of that, and it's absolutely incredible. So Gareth, thanks for that comment. That's exactly what it is. And I can tell you now, Paul, again, I really like watching on the side. Visibly, those Aprilias are just on another level. There was Matt Berto, a good mate of mine, commented earlier. You watch those Aprilias, and through that. So turn 1 is that fast right-hander, then you flick it immediately left into the tight right-hander, and to the naked eye, it looks like they're all just going right and left at the same speed.
Yeah.
But you can hear the different gear ratios. So like the KTM Brad, and I spoke to Bjorn about this, Brad was just, his engine note was a lot lower and he was short shifting a lot earlier going into the left, whereas the Ducatis were holding a gear through that section, and the Aprilias as well. But when you really pay attention, you can see that 0.2 of a second, where the Aprilias are finding that time while the others are wrestling, especially the KTMs. Brad and Pedro have to wrestle that thing to get it, from that right, get it into that left, hit the apex, and then try and get it right again. That Aprilia, I mean, we saw it on board with Bezzecchi. Even when you run wide and make a mistake, that Aprilia is flexible enough to bring it back, and you don't lose any time. Whereas you could see the Ducati and the KTM and the riders said it in the debriefs. Silverstone's that kind of track, especially through what's it called, that Fost left and right. It's got such
maggots and Beckett's.
If you get that first left-hander wrong, that whole section's
it's gone.
You've got it wrong. You've got it wrong. Whereas that Aprilia, I noticed so many times, you'd see the split, they would be up, they go in there, and you'd see they miss the apex, or they don't quite get it right, and you think, they've lost time, and they've actually gained time, and you're like, and that's what every other rider that was not on an Aprilia was asked, so did you follow the Aprilias? And we're like, well, we tried.
We can't.
You cannot follow an Aprilia around here. It's impossible.
I saw that overlay that Michael Laverty does, and I mean, Bezzecchi goes straight through. It was Mark Marquez, and I mean that was through that Beggett's complex section. I mean, what did he make there? 4/10 through 3 corners. That just showed you how, and they took Mark's fastest time and Bezzecchi's fastest time through that section, and he just, it was insane.
And listen, I think they possibly used the wrong rider there, because that was by far Mark's worst section. I managed to watch once or twice there, and I mean that footage shows it. It's turning right, and this is why the arguments come up is Mark's arm flared up again because he wasn't quite at his best, and he wasn't. It's just not Mark's track. He did look very uncomfortable in some parts of that circuit, even from trackside. I don't know if anyone else that was there this weekend managed to see that. And listen, Mark made no bones about it. In every debrief he came, in the first debrief on Friday, someone asked him, so you followed Alex? So another thing, Paul, going into this weekend, it's kind of a well-known thing in the paddock, and I don't think it's as well-known to us as it is in the paddock, is Alex Marquez is by far the smoothest Ducati rider on data. In terms of the way he gets the throttle on, the brakes on, manages. He's like the benchmark when it comes to smoothness, which is why he does so well at Silverstone, apparently, because you need that smooth managing the throttle, being able to know when you can be 100%, when you can't, or whatever. So he was asked, Mark, you followed Alex on Friday. Did you learn anything and Mark said straight out, I did follow Alex, but I can't do the things that he does. I'm 33 years old now. I used to be able to adapt. I can't adapt anymore. I don't want to adapt. And I need to realize that this is my limit. This is what I can do. And if I can't do something, I can't be the old rider that tries to force it and then land on my head. Because, I mentioned it in my paddock debrief afterwards. We're seeing this Marquez version 2.0, where weekends like this, where he doesn't have an answer, he's going to have to settle for it. And he came straight after the race on Sunday, and was it the tires? And he said, no, bike actually felt better. It was good. The limitation was me. I didn't have the speed. It wasn't, it wasn't my shoulder. I wasn't feeling, I didn't feel great on the bike, for sure. But that was me. I'm not able to adapt like I used to. And I'm not prepared. If I can't fight, I'm not prepared to fight. And, I was hoping I could get 5th place, but then Pedro and DG and whatever got past me. So 7th is what I get. 7th is what I get, And now I watched, like I said, podcasts and people saying, it's Mark and Ducati are over. It's going to Aragon next, where he dominated on a Cressini bike. And last year, if he comes out of Aragon in 7th place, okay, I'll kind of go, oh, geez.
Yeah.
But again, you forget this is off the back of Peloton Park, clawing back 100 and something point deficit. Yes, he lost points, so he's back to 40 points this weekend. Jorge Martin doing the champion thing and picking up points, and Bezzecchi, we'll talk about that then. But I saw a very uncomfortable Mark, but I also saw a Mark that's going, cool, that's me, that's what I have. If it's 7th place, it's 7th place. Goodbye, Silverstone. I don't particularly like you. Let's go to Aragon.
Yeah, Rob, I hear what you're saying. I think he's downplaying his injury. I honestly do. And I wanted to say he's getting better and better. And when I say he's downplaying it to a point where in the past we would see him take that chance. And I think now he realizes he can't do that. So he's got to settle for the seventh. Where previous years, a Mark Marquez would have said, there's no ways that Digi, that Pedro, that Alex is going to get past me. And is it maturity? Is it the injury? Is it a combination? I'm not 100% sure. I think he's realized that he's fallible. And I mean, in all fairness, he joined MotoGP class in 2013. He won at Silverstone in 2014. Yeah, he got beaten by Dovi once, very close, by Rins once, very close, but he's only ever won there once. So it's certainly not one of his favorite tracks. But yeah, I think he's at that point now where it's the injury, it's the age. He's come to realize that, he doesn't bounce like a 22-year-old. Yeah. And that, I think you're going to see a guy like Martin will take 100% advantage of that. Digi will do the same. Bezecchi will do the same. So he's got his hands full. And yeah, we're going to Aragon, and there are a few tracks we go to still where he's really good. But, you look at the guys who have fought with him this year, he's certainly not the intimidating Marc Marquez of 6-8 years ago. So it's going to be very challenging for him to I do think now he's got his hands full to try and win this championship, because he's not fighting Pecco Bagnaia. He's fighting Martin, who we know is a pit bull. He's fighting Ayagura, who he knows is not going to say much. He's just going to let the throttle do the talking. And I don't think quite we must write Marco Bezzecchi off. He showed this weekend what true guts is all about. 4 non-scores in Sunday races before now. And then to come back 3.5-4 weeks after breaking your collarbone, yeah, I got to say, big credit to him. I'm not saying he's going to win. I think Martin has just upped the stakes to be world champion again. But, you got 4 riders there that any one of them can win. And 3 of the 4 are on exceptionally good form. So, yeah, it's going to be a challenge for whoever wants to take it. What's going to win this championship, I think, going forward is the lack of mistakes.
Yeah.
So you can't do what Ayagura did on Sunday. Maybe a Saturday race like Raul. Okay, I don't consider Raul to be a championship contender. The beginning of his year wasn't good enough. But you can lose 12 points on a Saturday. But Sunday, there's no chance you have for falling over going forward for the next 10 races. They're going to be very competitive.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Paul, and I fully agree with you. Mark's not up against the Pecco Bagnaia, or other riders that he could mostly mentally kind of beat before they even get on track. His biggest problem at the moment is that he's up against 4 very fast Aprilias, 2 factory and 2 track out. That there's no difference with 4 riders that are injected with life and loving life, and just Bezzecchi, as you said, I think found a new version of himself this weekend, and he dug deep. He put in a champion's ride. That's Mark's biggest problem. And he needs the Digis and the Alexes and the Peccos to get in the mix here to try and steal points from them. And up till now, Aprilia should be clear winning this championship by miles. It's been their own through their own that Mark's still in this championship. Yes, Mark's won in that, but even with those wins, Bezzecchi should be picking up seconds and thirds, and he should still be 100 and something points clear. So they've allowed him back in, but that's Mark's biggest problem. Let me tell you, Paul, I mean, they're all fit and they're all ripped and stuff. Mark is properly ripped, like a township dog. He's ripped. But he holds his arm in that debrief like this, and Paul, you can just see those life scars. Obviously, thick veins because they just ultimately. But it's like a zombie's been at him. You can see that scar here. He's got a scar here. I mean, the guy. I've never really taken it, and I try to take a picture, but you don't want to be too obvious and. Not being the full-time, so how it works in the debrief is the full-time journalists get the front row, you've got to let them through, and you've got to stand at the back, which is fine. I've got no problem with it. So you don't really get a view, but I really took note of it, how he did. You could just see those scars there, like this beaten and battered man that's given his life. We've all seen them in the documentaries and that, but when you see it in real life, you can skin missing, it's the man's gone through hell. There's no doubt about it, and most of them have it. But I understand what you and other people are saying about Mark and the shoulder injury. And Mark is very good at disguising it. He did it the whole of the start of the season. The bastard lied to us the start of the season. I just simply think it was just he didn't click on Friday. He didn't look comfortable the whole weekend. Couldn't get the bike working. If I look up, Pecco didn't get the bike working. I think Caddy factory team got it wrong. I think they didn't make right decisions with their riders and understanding the tires and everything. So we'll see. It's kind of good that we're going 2 weeks to Aragon, because if we're still seeing this hesitating Marc Marquez struggling in the right hand is a bit more than usual, then I would raise the alarm bells. But for now, I'm taking it with a pinch of salt that it was just not his weekend. Didn't feel comfortable. Had this graining of the tire. Just that comparison with Bezzecchi and turning right. Mark doesn't lose 4/10 in 3 corners. It doesn't happen. But as you said, it could be a testament to his shoulder. I don't agree. But for everyone in the comments, I've had some really, like this one that I'm going to answer here from Gareth Funny Cag. Like Paul, like you said, we know a lot of the stuff that happened on track, and we'll try and talk about that as much as possible, because that's what the show is. But if there's any kind of questions like this where you want to know a little bit more of the personal side within the paddock, that I can maybe give you some of my experience or whatever, I'll gladly answer them. So Gareth Funny Cag, can you please give insight into Martin's personality, plan for next year and performance? To me, he's an absolute machine. Reckon he'll take the championship. So great question, Gareth. And on a personal level, professional, if I look at his debriefs and that, he also wears his heart on his sleeve a lot of the time. Very, like, I don't want to say outspoken, but if it's not his fault, he'll gladly say it's not his fault. If it's the team's fault, he'll gladly say it's the team's fault. Coming into this weekend, his debrief was basically, I haven't had a good feeling with the front end, certainly like I had at the beginning of the year. We've seemed to have lost that. So I need to find it again. That was on the Thursday. And then on the Friday, he was battling a little bit. He wasn't quite as fast out of the box as the other Aprilias. And then he kind of found something. And when he was asked about it in the Friday debrief, he said it was a mental switch. He wasn't feeling comfortable with the front end. And then at some point, he just told himself, listen, just stop whining and deal with his front end. Trust his front end. And he went and he did that. And the lap time came, and it kind of gave him the confidence. So kind of found something within him. It wasn't so much the bike or the team. It was more him just having to get his head around trusting this front end, which he did. So listen, very self-confident, very got that arrogance to him, which is a sign of a true champion. Just that self-belief. The guy, he was asked, so what's the difference? How are you able in the sprint race? How were you able to manage the tire compared to everyone else? And he's like, just because I was better at it. I understood how to handle the throttle. So he's very much like it, and you can see it as cocky and arrogant, but it was certainly the truth in this.
True, yeah.
It was true, and so he's just saying, well, I believe in myself, and this is why. So, sometimes I look at it and I go, well, that was a bit arrogant, but then I go, well, no, it wasn't, because he's, the self-belief is there. So great character. I will say one thing, and I'll show you a little bit of proof here. So I've got these 2 Jorge Martin limited edition Red Bull cans that the KTM team gave me a couple of years ago, thanks to my mate Robbie, the truck driver for Brad's KTM team. So he gave me these. So I was like, this is awesome, So I've kept them, haven't been open, nothing. So I mustn't forget to get them signed by Martin. And now there's a trick to getting things signed that I've learned, is don't get them signed when there's a crowd around, because you're just going to get the scribble, because obviously they're going through people. Yeah. Mark's pretty good. Mark, a couple of them are pretty good, but Quattararo like just scribbles now. I'll show you. But I didn't think Martin scribbled. So there, I don't know if you can see it. There's Martin's.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how it looks.
Yeah.
This another guy signs my can.
He scribbled.
And this is how, that's the same person with the same pen at the exact same time. So I was like, oh. And I had him all to myself. It wasn't like he was rushed or anything. Like I made sure. And I was like, oh. And he didn't even smile or anything. I was like, no, Martin, I like you. I want to buy your cap.
Yeah.
But then you do that. What about your catch anymore? So listen,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm joking, you know, but
Yeah.
personality-wise, he is Gareth. I think that the way you put it is right. He's an absolute machine. He's got the self-belief that I am going to destroy everyone. He's got this experience now of winning that world championship by not winning every race, and he kind of said that in the debrief. Is I know I want to go win every race. That's the person I know, but I know I don't have to. So like weekends like this where he lost to Raul, yes, it's hard, and he's looking at Raul going, bastard, I want to win. I want to be the fastest person in the world every week. But he's going, okay, well, this is great. I've come into this weekend and I've left the weekend extending my championship lead.
Yeah.
And if you look at, it's hard to believe that he's actually leading the championship, Paul, because he took everyone out, skittled everyone at Ballantyne Park, had the problem at Catalunya. You know, it hasn't been this massively consistent thing.
Yeah, was no good at the beginning of the year.
But you know, his no good is third, fourth place.
Yeah, exactly.
He picked up second, won another sprint race, so he's just better than everyone else. So as a personality, I can understand why he's a champion, and I can understand why he's at the pinnacle of the sport, because he's the machine. Self-belief is great. I'm just going to send him an invoice to buy me 2 new cans that he destroyed.
Yeah. Listen, Rob, we said it before the weekend of Barcelona, how when he zones into that Martinator mode, he's a different animal. You can see it. You can physically see he has that FU attitude. It's the red mist from Friday morning till Sunday afternoon. But it bit him at Barcelona. His maturity now shows, which was in 2023 when he lost the championship. It was that win at all costs mentality. And he even said after the championship, I thought too much of winning the championship. Now I must take it race by race. And I think that's the maturity. That's what a true champion does. He analyzes what went wrong. And I still say that Barcelona weekend, he went in there, he thought he was going to annihilate everyone because Barcelona was an Aprilia track. And what did he have? I can't remember. 6 crashes in the weekend, battered and bruised. But he bounced back. And as we say, he shouldn't be winning this championship. He skittled everyone. He's crashed. He was injured at the beginning of the year. But his bad results have been those 3rd and 4ths when he has finished. And when he can win, he wins. But he's got that mental ability that when things don't go his way, Silverstone ended on Sunday afternoon. It's gone. Can't change it. We worry about Aragon now. He seems to have that mental strength, ability to just put that in a box, regardless of what the result was. That box has been dealt with. And that to me makes a very dangerous rider, because he gets to Aragon, whatever happened, and okay, he had a good weekend this weekend, but if he had a bad weekend, he wouldn't be mulling over that thinking, oh, what did I do wrong in turn 6? He gets to the new track and off he goes. And if he has a good Friday morning, that Martinator zone just kicks in. He's dangerous. He really is. Conversely, that Martinator attitude has set him back when he hasn't. And I think he's learning when to come off the gas. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good season. You know, I wanted best. If it wasn't going to be Mark II, I wanted it to be best because of what he did for Aprilia. And he's bounced back nicely. But all of a sudden now, where we've always said he's earned the right to be the number one, suddenly Martin's taken that right way away from him, and he's saying, well, I am the number one, which I should have been last year. So they're going to have a little bit of an internal fight going on. Never mind the fact that Ayagura is equally as fast, but he's not in their team. He doesn't sit in their box. So I think this dynamic could play into the hands of Ayagura, Fabio De Gianantonio, and Marc Marquez, that the 2 factory Aprilias are now 1st and 2nd again, and this could cause a problem. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out going forward, because of the fact that this Martinator effect has such a big pro, but it can have such a big con for him, depending on the circumstances. So it's going to be interesting to watch that dynamic, and whether or not Aprilia share all their info or not. I don't know if they do. Do you have any insight? I just think that Ayagura seems to be their benchmark. They look at what he's doing and head towards that, because I think he's the more level-headed, more stable. I don't know. It would be interesting to know.
Yeah, from Aprilia's side, they do. It's an open playing field. Aprilia just want an Aprilia machine winning at the end of the season. They want a number one on an Aprilia, whether it's the factory team, obviously that would be first preference, but if it's Trackhouse, Aprilia are just desperate to win this championship and get one over Ducati. That's their first port of call. So from the debriefs and speaking, it's an open channel. Everyone has it. But exactly like to what you say, Martin's not this. I'm not here to test. I'm not here to. I want to try and get this bike set. And we saw it we heard it in the Ducati days. He made one or two clicks here and there on the bike throughout the season. He doesn't do this up, down, left, right, and center, which is why he was struggling. And kudos to him, because he's saying, I'm struggling to get the front end feel, but I had it. So I don't need to go up, down, left, right, and center. I had it. So let's not move too far away from this. And it was more a mental thing. Maybe he just needed the summer break to kind of reset his brain and come back fresher. And he literally came out and said it was more me just mentally making that adjustment and trusting it. So it's an open playing field. Martin is that I want to get on with the job. Ayagura is that more meticulous, and Bezzecchi, I think, work at this. I think Ralph Fernandez just takes advantage of that all. You know, I don't think Fernandez is a guy that can also necessarily set it up himself, but he might find, a bit of that Bez works, a bit of that Martin works, a bit of that I works, put it together. Oh, this is great. Now I'm just going to go. You know, and he takes advantage of that. So they've got a really good mix of riders there, from the development side to the this works, let's go with this, and the kind of that raw flat out speed which Martin is. So, and that's what Yamaha are ultimately buying for next year. But at the same time, that's where Yamaha have got to be careful, is that they're kind of getting a Quartararo in many ways, that this thing's got to be good for me to go fast. If it's not, I'm not going to waste time and energy going up and waiting for you to sort it out. You must sort it out. And that's where, again, Martin, you know, benefited big time. Didn't benefit, you know, he lost a lot of the whole of last year. You know, he didn't race Silverstone last year, so he lost a lot. But he benefited from Bezzecchi doing such a great job, and Aprilia, to build this foundation for him to go and be fast. Same with as Pecco developed that fantastic Ducati for Martin to go win a championship. Bez is doing the same for him on the Aprilia. So, I hope that's answered your question, Gareth. Great question, and I hope it's answered it. Another question, similar to that, Wayne Taylor. Did you do any Pecco debriefs, Rob? I did. And Paul and everyone, and Wayne and everyone, I can tell you, I mean, I'm a huge Pecco Bagnaia fan. He's the suit and tie, and he's the brand ambassador for MotoGP. He's so good with the fans. He's just brilliant in debriefs. He's just brilliant. He's a true champion and just a fantastic guy. But he needs a bit of Jorge Martin. He needs a bit of arrogance, and he needs a bit of self-belief injected into him, because I think that's what's missing. I don't think, I think he's, and we saw a couple of years ago, was it that clip of Tardozzi and the thing with him and saying, Pecco, you've got to stop being the gentleman. I think that's exactly what it is. And I think, and this is how the TV works. This is how media works. As soon as Pecco crashes or has something, they cut straight to Tardozzi to get his to make Tardozzi hates, and he does it. Ducati's frustration, I think, with Pecco is exactly that. Like, Pecco, stop being the nice guy. We love that you're marketing, and we love that, but we need you to be a bit of a bastard sometimes. We need you to be this ignorant, arrogant prick, and just go climb on that motorbike, and if everyone else around you, you're going to destroy them. And he's just not that. Even in the debrief, I mean, he doesn't know. He's scratching his head. How do you lose the front coming out of a turn?
Out of a corner,
but, I don't know. But Pecco, you're the guy on the bike from Friday to Sunday. You didn't progress at all. You were 17th, and they're around the entire time. You didn't make it into Q1, while every other Ducati rider pretty much was, including Iker Lecuona. So what's the common denominator? It's a Mark team now, and they're setting the bike up to Mark. Well, then how's Alex and Digi and Iker Lecuona doing it? Honestly, and I mean, it's hard for me to say, because when I stand outside the Pecco Bagnaia merchandise, I just want to buy one of everything. That's how big a fan of mine. But he does need a bit of Martin in him to get the best out of him.
Yeah, Robin, I think he had those glory years where the bike worked well, and He didn't have to deal with a Marc Marquez and an Alex Marquez and a Fabio De Gianantonio. And I mean, he won his championships, and all credit to him, but he basically raced Martin as his sole competitor. And I know we're exaggerating, and please don't take it the wrong way. He earned his championships. But suddenly the goalpost or the competition level got raised, and Martin beat him the first time that he managed to really be competitive, Martin, for a full season. Pecco then started making mistakes. That was 2024. 2025, he was outdone by his teammate from day one, but not just his teammate. Alex Marquez drilled him fair and square from week one till the end of the championship. This year, things haven't gone his way. Digi's now ahead of him, or has been the whole year. So he seems exactly what you're saying. I think his demeanor is that he's defeated. Yeah. He doesn't come across like that. He's no longer, I'm going to say, Ducati's blue-eyed boy. He most certainly was. He no longer is. Last year, we saw that relationship wasn't great. Yes, and I agree with you. The camera goes straight to Tardozzi, who is an expressive oak and makes it look worse than it is. Yes. But there were many times when they did show Gigi in the pits, and he had his head in his hands, and you could see the frustration, disappointment, whatever it was. And no matter what, Pecco sees that at some point. And I think in the Ducati, and I'm saying the Ducati team, not Lenovo, Ducati as a collective, I think he's feeling like the forgotten child.
Yeah.
And his results are forcing that to happen. You can't blame Digi. You can't blame Alex Marquez. You can't blame Marc Marquez. The only Ducati that he's beating consistently is Morbidelli, and that's no great shakes. So I think he's in a difficult situation, but you're quite right. He needs something. And that Matt Burt kept saying, no, there's something is going to be moving to Aprilia next year. He's in for a hiding second to none against Bezzecchi if he doesn't change. And like you say, Martin came back, changed his mental approach. We've said it. We said it last year in the break. We said it this year. Pecco needs to reset. And I think he's finding it difficult how to do that.
Yeah, Aprilia are losing a lot next year. They're losing Martin and Aigura. I mean, Yamaha. Talking about a piece of business, we were just talking about they got that perfect mix, that perfect kind of batch of flavor with the current rider crop. Ralph Fernandez, good, but only if the system is good.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean? So the Pecco Bagnaia is going to walk in there, but if he thinks he's going to walk in there with this current kind of mentality and that, he's got to, as you said, he's got to kind of almost puff his shoulders out and his chest out a little bit more, because
his authority.
He's got to put his foot down. Otherwise, he's just going to be the second guy in the pit.
He might even be the fourth guy. We don't know how Bastianini, once they confirm that, if it is. And, the way Ralph Fernandez is going at the moment, should that bike be, the 850, be similar to this bike, Ralph Fernandez knows how it works. He's going to get on it and be competitive. Pecco's going to get there and it's going to be brand new. Yes, it's going to be brand new for everyone. But the DNA of the bike will be an Aprilia. He's been on the DNA of a Ducati his whole MotoGP career. So he's got to adapt to that. And if he doesn't show some sort of assertiveness, he could find himself being the fourth fastest Aprilia next year. And that's really going to, to be on a 4-year contract and to not be the top dog, it's going to challenge him certainly in terms of his mental ability to move forward as a MotoGP champion potential.
I spoke earlier about how the Michelin tires have impacted the likes of Brad and Jack Miller, and that I think Pecco could also fall into that. We look at that season, that always dominant, his dominant seasons. He would always slide the bike nicely, and he's also a rider. He always, every debrief, he says, feel. I don't have feel. I don't have feel. I don't have feel. Whereas Mark and them never talk about feel. They don't say that word. They talk about other things. So I think Pecco Bagnaia has also been impacted by that. So I think the Pirellis might, because whenever they go testing their production superbikes, Pecco's one of the fastest by miles with a VR46 Academy and stuff, and that's on Pirelli tires, and they're more production based with that feel. You can feel more of what's happening underneath him. So I think that is going to benefit him. But as you said, he's got to go in there as wanting to be the number one rider. Otherwise, he could very quickly find himself the number 4 rider. Alex Fullion, Rob, please, is the BMW rumor true? If you know and are allowed to answer. So Alex, I kind of touched upon it earlier on. Nothing, honestly, no confirmation from kind of the horse's mouth, Brad's mouth, the birthday boy. Didn't really get into it that much with him because, wanted to keep it more as a friend-to-friend conversation, not a media conversation. But from all the top sources and reliable sources that I spoke to within the paddock, sounds like it's a pretty much done deal. So that's all I can give you right now. Unfortunately, Daryl Holmes, best you start selling hundreds of zeros as we're wanting our tickets. I'm going to try, my buddy. I'm going to try, I promise you. There was something I was going to say now, Paul, until you rudely interrupted me, and I can't remember what it was. It was something vitally important, I can tell you.
I was going to say, couldn't have been that important.
No, it was a good comment. I can't even remember what it was. Let's see. I'm just catching up with. Is there a way to post a picture on the chat, Gareth? No, there isn't. Unfortunately, I don't think on this. John Kotzer, TNT commentators mentioned. Hodgie said he's the Ducati. He sees the Ducatis that aren't in the championship fight help Mark closer to the end of the season. What is your take on that? So there was this rumor coming out of it, Paul. I don't know if you've seen it, where apparently Ducati have gone to like Alex or Cressini and VR46 and said, we're going to halt your development and stuff because we don't want you beating Mark. We need Mark in the title. I didn't personally hear any of that in the paddock. Maybe it happened after I left. I don't know. Didn't happen in any of the debriefs that I was certainly involved in. It's something I could see Ducati doing and saying, to be honest, as a sign of desperation. But on the flip side, I don't know. In the previous years, I think they kept it pretty open and honest. When Pecco and Martin were going for it, although Martin in his podcast wasn't as
yeah.
Oh, no, he was. He said they were pretty much open. He just had to wangle it his own way. So I don't know. I don't know what to take from that, whether it's true or not. But I can't confirm that anything was mentioned while I was there.
Yeah, Robin, let's be quite honest. So let's say we get to the championship, 3 rounds to go. Mark's in with a chance, and let's just say Jorge Martin. It would be stupid of Aprilia not to go to the 4 Aprilias and say, listen, boys, let's just say the 3 other Aprilias don't have a chance. It would be stupid of them not to say, listen, boys, you can race. You can do what you want. But if you have an opportunity to overtake Martin, you do it very carefully. And if it's in the last 2 laps, we prefer you not to. That, to me, that would, you said it, they're there for an Aprilia to win. Same with Ducati. Yeah, Ducati, different story, Mark's in the factory team. But I'm going to tell you, if that's their thinking, and Digi is leading the championship or in the with a chance to win, and Mark's kind of out of it, of course they're going to go there and say, listen, we don't need any idiot moves between the Ducati riders race, but let's see if we can get Digi to the line or whoever. And clearly, Mark and his brother will have an agreement. That is an unwritten thing without any doubt. I just think it would make that makes, especially for Aprilia who haven't won it, that makes, is business sense the right word? You want to win the championship, you do what it takes within fair play. So they're not going to go and give Raul Fernandez a bike that's 100 horsepower down. They need to do it in the right way. That's what being in the same team is all about.
Yes.
Different story if you got the 2 factory Ducatis or the 2 factory Aprilias racing for the championship. Yeah, then like we said earlier, then it's each man for himself, and Bezecchi's got to really fight hard to beat the Terminator, the Martinator. So yeah, it'll be a different thing. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be difficult when that decision needs to be made.
What have you done to piss Johnny Martins off, Paul?
I don't know. Yes.
That's your coach tonight,
no, 100%. But, these oaks are there to win the championship. No one's going to remember on the 1st of January next year that Alex didn't overtake Mark or Bezecchi didn't overtake Martin because he had the opportunity. And we're only talking possibly the last 2 or 3 rounds. Yeah. And you're not. You tell Martin that he's not allowed to overtake Bezecchi when he's got a chance to win a race. He's just going to tell you where to get off the bus. There's absolutely no doubt. But yeah, certainly I think I think in any form of racing, there's that collective where they look at it and say, okay, now we've got down to the brass knuckles side of this fight. This is how we want it to work out. Doesn't always work like that. A rider can crash. Anything can go wrong. But I think they definitely, like Aprilia had when they were having the issues with Martin and Fernandez, and then Martin taking everyone, they sat them down and said, boys, this is not what we're here for. They needed to do that. So whether they do it in round 6 or round 19, it's the same collective result that they're looking for. Gigi Dell'Igna wants to see a Ducati win this championship. Yeah, he has his favorites, which is Lenovo, but he actually wouldn't mind if it was Alex or Digi as opposed to Bezzecchi or Martin. That's what he wants.
Johnny, not pissed off, just calling it the way I see it. You are there to race till the end. Johnny, 100% right, my bad.
I'm all for that, but that's not reality.
Yeah, Paul, you mentioned the business side, and if I use the Raul Fernandez conversation when I was sitting talking to this person at Trackhouse, I didn't even think of it from that business point of view when they said, Rob, we've poured 4 years of finances and energy into this guy. Now we must just let him go. You don't always think of that business side of the sport. We see the sport and it's racing, it's lekker. It is, if you're lucky enough to get into that paddock and you see what's exposed there and what's on the line there, it's a business, and everything is a business decision. Brad, been with KTM forever. Oh, we love you. Oh, no, it's goodbye. We don't love you anymore. It's ruthless, aggressive business. And speaking to some of my other mates, like in the Cressini hospitality and others, they all saying we're trying to keep the Liberty Wolves, away from the door here, because what's happening is they make a lot of their revenue through selling these hospitality packages. A MotoGP package with like a Cressini can be up to £2,500-3,000 for the weekend. But you get a proper, I must say, Cressini's experience. If you want to go to MotoGP and do everything, pit tour, meet the riders, one of the best hospitalities, food, drink, atmosphere-wise, Cressini is your best. You get a cap, you get alles. You get alles. It's fantastic. So it's a lot of money, but it's definitely worth it. But they make a lot of revenue through that. My mate that I know, his sole job is to bring that revenue in. So now obviously Liberty have seen this, and this is where MotoGP is going. If I look at the signed memorabilia that I used to do, many years ago, Brad used to give me stuff and I used to sign it and sell it and auction it and whatever. I used to get other riders. MotoGP now do, MotoGP official memorabilia or whatever it's called, where you can buy the stuff. So they're going to the riders, paying them, which is good. That's the way to do it. But they saw an avenue there where eBay and the likes of me were, doing and making money. So they've taken control of that. But now they're trying to do the same with hospitality. And I don't think they quite realize, they want to fill these hospitalities with, take away those lobster-looking British fans, with their beer bellies and the race fans, proper MotoGP race fan, and put a suit and tie guy with a glass of champagne. They want to turn it into Formula One and make it more corporate. But then when it's exposed how much money that they actually make off proper diehard MotoGP fans, and they say, okay, if you can write us a check for this amount now, we'll take it and it's yours. Cool. Yeah. But then when they realize that amount, they go, oh, geez, okay, now hang on. So anyway, it's that business, and you don't know it from the outside. But when you're in there talking to these people on the inside, it's this cutthroat business, just like we've all had to deal with it at some point in our working journeys or whatever. 1 minute you're the man, next minute you're not. If you're not doing the job, you're out. When you're performing, you're great and it's lovely. When you're not, you're the arsehole. You must get out the door. So it's still that. It's not just this glory MotoGP paddock where everyone's. It's a cutthroat business world. So I do think we forget that sometimes. Wayne Taylor, another question, Rob. When you attend a race as a journalist, do you watch the races on TV somewhere, or do you sit trackside most of the time? Wayne, now you're going to expose me here, because I felt very bad this weekend, because I like to get out and watch, especially on the Friday and the Saturday. I do a lot. I go out and watch a lot. Sunday, I generally like to sit in the media room and watch. And it's quite nice sitting with some of the other journalists, because you get a lot of reaction, and it's quite cool. But sometimes I also like just to sit by myself at the cafe, or, the press cafe, and just watch on the TV, have the time to watch it myself. This weekend, I must say, I felt a little bit bad. And this is maybe the downside to Silverstone again, because at Lamar, it's easy to go everywhere. And most of the places, it's easy to go anywhere. You get your service road bib and you can go watch, a bit more up close compared to the fans. Silverstone doesn't really have that. And like I said, from the paddock, I could go to turn 1, that section. And it's quite nice because you see turn 1 turn 2, turn 3, and a little bit of turn 4. Or I could go to the final sector, which is also quite nice. They come out of that right over the dip into the left, right chicane, and the 2 rights onto the front straight. So I would go watch there. So I did that most of Friday in all the sessions, Moto2, Moto3, and MotoGP. And then I did Saturday morning, and then I got to qualifying, and I went, you know what, it's so flipping hot outside. and I feel bad sitting in the media room watching on the screen, because I know how many people would die to be there watching. But the media center is quite nice at Silverstone because it's obviously just over the front straight. And while you're sitting there watching the TV, you can almost look across and you look out the window and you get the front straight. You know, so like Keyles's crash in Moto3, I saw that happen, because as soon as they get to that point, then I watch the front straight and I can see it. And you can hear the bikes. The window vibrates and you hear that beautiful sound just pulsate through your whole body. So to answer your question quickly, most of the time I go out and watch it, but this weekend I was a little bit of a bum and a lazy bastard, and I just sat in the comfort of the media room with my free sausage, bacon, butty thing that I got with brown sauce, and I just sat and enjoyed it in there. So yeah, I hope that's answered your question. I'm trying to see. I paid £4 for a can of water at Silverstone. It's probably the most expensive track for a MotoGP weekend. We've looked at going to other tracks for the weekend, and everything is cheaper. I can't argue with you there. Things are, although Ollie Moto, I don't know if you can answer, because I didn't spend as much time in the fan zone as I normally did. But like last year, I would, that same bacon and sausage butty would be like £10. Whereas you get it at the BP garage for 3 type things. I don't know how it was this weekend, but it didn't feel as daylight robbery as it did in the past. Johnny Martin didn't want to turn into a lobster again then, Rob. That's exactly. I didn't pack sunscreen because, I'm in the UK. First of all, I'm sick of putting sunscreen on, because the last 2 months it has been boiling. We've had no rain. Everything's dry. And I feel bad complaining about it, but we do need a bit of rain. But I'm tired of putting sunscreen on, and I didn't pack sunscreen. And one thing I will say is the Friday or the Saturday, the one MotoGP session, I was standing at the final turn looked to my right, and right next to me was John McGuinness.
Okay.
Hello, 65 million time TT world champion. How are you doing, my bud? So it's those kind of things that are very cool. And I saw Peter Hickman walking through the paddock. It was on some of the videos that I did. There were some really cool riders that I was just walking around. I saw Carl Ride, BSB champion. I saw Brad Ray. No, I didn't see Brad Ray. I saw Ryan Vickers. I saw a couple of Ryan. We don't buy any food in the circuit. We take lunch with us. See, Olimoto's clever. See, he's clever, yeah, no. Olimoto, it was £7.70 for a pint, which isn't so bad. You see, Olimoto, the problem is us South Africans, we convert that. So your £7.70, you can buy a house in South Africa.
It's $170.
170, yeah. Try being well, I can tell you, Paul, even in the media room, like we got a voucher for a breakfast and a lunch every day, which was great. You didn't get a drink, you only got the lunch. You had to buy your own drink. So normally a can of Red Bull, like at the garages and that, is £2, just over £2. It was £3.90 at thing. A bottle of water, you can buy one of these 2-liter bottles of water at the local co-op, and that for like 90p type thing. For the little 500 or 250 ml bottle, it was about £4.
Jeez.
So it's 10 quid at some events. Yeah. So yeah, it is what it is. I just want to go through the list here. I'm trying to think if there's any standout kind of debriefs. I mentioned the Alex Marquez and DJ Antonio. Alex Marquez saying, "Oh no, we're getting better. We're getting closer." And Digi like flat out, no, we are not. We need to do more. We've done better, but we need to do a hell of a lot more. I think Digi I had him down as one of my favorites. When I watched what I saw on Friday, how consistent and smooth he was, he looked really good. Like all of them, like all of us, wasn't expecting this grading of the tire, so this heat problem with the tire and losing the grip. So that really impacted the Ducati riders, it seemed like, most of all. And Sunday, Digi also said, I think maybe over-managed my tire a bit, but Digi did what Digi does, is he still got a good result out of it, just not quite cracking that top 3 enough on Sundays to really put him as a championship contender. But again, I'm loving the Digi exercise, love his debriefs. Alex Marquez also really enjoyed, speaks well. I like his debriefs. speaks positively. Luca Marini is still my favorite when it comes to debriefs. He just goes into detail. He really just talks about things, and he's very free and open to talk about it. And he talks about it really well, and from a technical point that you as a non-technical person can understand, if you know what I mean, which is really cool. Diego Moreira, I said he was really cool as well. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to say. I'm going to try and see if I can find something that comes to mind that really stands out.
Yeah, Rob, I don't think there's too much to add. I must say Moreira's really impressed me. He's a rookie. He's on a bike that's okay. I mean, but he was a second behind Marini. He's definitely showing that he belongs there. Not to say that anyone ever questioned it, but sometimes you get thrown in the deep end on a bike that's maybe not as competitive as you would like. A la Toprak, who's really struggling. Now you get Moreira, who's adapting, and week after week after week, he's consistent. He stays on the bike. I think he's doing really, really well, and I think it's quite a credit to Honda for signing him on a, they definitely took a chance. There's no doubt, and I'm not questioning his ability. Last year, he showed us that he's got that mental fortitude. When Gonzalez was running away with the championship, as we've said, Pecco needs to do. He asserted his authority, and he made sure he won. And this year, I think he's outdoing himself. There's absolutely no doubt. Long time since a rookie stepped on a Honda, and by this point of the season, hadn't missed 3 races due to injury, or 4 races. So I think it just shows that he's got that mental capacity to ride the bike to its limits, where Jean Mir, he clearly can't figure out where the limit is, because week after week after week he's in the bushes. Where this Moreira, he's figured that, he's not winning anything, but he's at a point where he's still learning. So I'm very impressed with him.
A couple of comments about Toprak Razgatlioglu, and I mentioned earlier his debriefs are tough. He's positive and he's honest about it. He's just like, it's the tires. He's just not getting along with the tires. Silverstone's not his kind of circuit. He didn't look comfortable out on the track. He's a hard braking kind of, but he's using this word feel. He's just not feeling the bike underneath him. He was very disappointed that he was so far off. He said he wasn't happy with the 40 seconds. As in previous races, as hard as it's been, he's either been top Yamaha or close to top Yamaha, which gave him, a bit of the positivity. Being this far behind even the next Yamahas was very disappointing for him. So, a couple of comments like John and saying Toprak's not performing, and Wayne Taylor has been disappointing. For sure he has. There's no doubt about it at the level that we know Toprak is at. Yeah. But what I will say is I also see a rider that's using the season purely as what it is. It's the last season on the Michelins. Yeah. It's my season to enjoy as much of the 1000cc category as possible. But Toprak, we can only really judge Toprak on next season. That's going to be, and he says it, as soon as I'm on those Pirellis, I'm going to be expected to perform. And if I don't, because he was asked a question about there's rumors going that BMW want him back in World Superbikes, is that an option for next year? And he's like, obviously not. I'm staying in MotoGP. I want to make MotoGP work next year. Judge me as much as you want this season. Next season, you can really, really judge me. So he's under no illusions that, look where the Yamaha is. I think if he was on a Ducati or anything else, it would be a better exercise. I think he's on the worst package, which is emphasizing the Michelin problems even more. Silverstone, he said he'll never say any tracks like bad or his worst or terrible, because he loves them all, but certainly not a Toprak track. How much time will they give Toprak, Gareth? Look, he's highly respected in that paddock. And a little story with Toprak again. I had a Toprak replica that I had the visor done by Shuey and got him to sign it. So again, a couple of times I went and he was really busy, and I went. And now what happens at Silverstone, Paul, is happened at Goodwood as well. There's these guys like these eBay hoarders that come with duffel bags full of stuff. They've got every single rider in there, and they piss the riders off because they pull out 10 million photos for them to sign. They pull out this, and they just irritate the riders. That's when you get the scribble. So as soon as I see them, I go, well, I'm not going to stand here with these guys because I'm just going to get a scribble. Anyway, on Thursday, I'd waited so long for Toprak. It's a patient game that's getting autographs. that eventually he had just come from doing the Alpine thing, so he was still in the Alpine Formula One gear. And that, if you look on YouTube, really cool video of him and Jack going to the Alpine Formula One team headquarters. So he still came back in that, and then they went and did a promo in the pits and came out. And I thought, this is my best opportunity. This is 7 o'clock at night now on Thursday night.
Yeah.
As I'm standing there, 3 of these hoarder guys come, and I'm like, oh, for God's sake, with their duffel bags, with duffel bags, bike models, 16 million photos. And I'm thinking, so anyway, Top Rack came, these guys jump straight in. I mean, they'll push kids out the way to get them. They're horrible people. Don't buy anything off. Horrible people. Anyway, so I eventually get to Top Rack. Now I can see he's exhausted and stuff, and I'm like, here's this. And Top Rack was like, he was almost like, why? You really want my order? He took this helmet, he like made himself comfortable, and he said, so how do you want? And he just signed this helmet on the helmet and the visor like to absolute perfection. So that's one thing I will take with Top Rack. And then I must actually do a segment on autograph. Top Rack has got a beautiful autograph, like Rossi's, it's unmistakable. It looks clean, beautiful on a visor. I spoke earlier about Fabio Quartararo being in a cut mood lately and scribbling.
Oh, no.
That's a scribble. Is that a twin?
Yeah.
Now, this is my visor for a Scorpion, because I've got Scorpion, for the old Quartararo Scorpion helmet that I'm waiting till I can find one at a really good price, and I want to put this on stickers, and it's going to go in the cabinet.
Yeah, and he does that.
Now with the same pen. Nice, neat. You know what I mean? You can see the difference between caring. Listen, I'm not in a good mood.
Just doing it for the sake of doing it.
I'm tired of it. So listen, it's not a bad thing. I don't hold against the riders. They are busy, man. I had Quartararo all to myself. Wasn't in a rush or anything. Doesn't take much to just give me a nice one. I see them do it. But anyway, it is what it is. So to end the Top Rack, these are kind of little things that happen in the paddock that I think you might like to see. But as far as Top Rack goes, I think I've pretty much said all it is to say. Next year, I think we can really start judging him.
Yeah, Rob, I hope it pans out for him, because he came in with high expectations himself and high expectations on him. And to be quite honest, he hasn't delivered. And that's not his fault. If he was consistently the worst Yamaha, we'd say, no, it's not shaping up. But he's consistently, Quartararo's got a lot of experience. So Quartararo more often than not beats him, but he's not far behind. This was just one of those weekends where nothing seemed to work for him. So, but he didn't throw it down the road. He didn't have a great weekend, let's be quite honest. But, he finished, he'll chalk it up to experience and move on. And that's what I like about all of them. They have that ability to just say, okay, that box is ticked. Not a great weekend. Don't harp on it. Let's go to next weekend or the next race and see where we can go from there. And I do think next year's definitely going to be better for him. In every aspect, everyone will be on similar footing. I still think the tires this year are, I don't want to say diabolical, that's too harsh a word, but it's not a level playing field, no matter what anyone says. We want to see it that, that everyone gets the tires, you get it to adapt to your bike, and we see competitive racing. Even Quartararo, tire penalty. Okay, I think that was more a valve issue, but this whole story that you get too close, the tire overheats. You've got to drop back. Like you said, that graph with Marc Marquez, which I didn't see, but the fluctuation, they said that window for the tire to work is so narrow that, is that racing? I don't know. Is it a Michelin fault? Is it a MotoGP fault? We know that the aero has created a different monster in the motorcycles, that there's so much downforce. I think 250 kilos of downforce. That's like adding 2 additional people on the back of the bike to get it to sit. When you're doing 300 k's an hour, that's hectic. And obviously the tires need to deal with that. But it just seems like this whole tire story this year is worse than it has been. And I do think Silverstone, with the temperatures and everything, and maybe the surface, just was an anomaly, if that's the right word, for this weekend.
So, John, it's a good, valid question. My simple answer to you, I would say, is it's 99 or 90% tires, to be honest. I think the other thing Top Rack is battling with, and I saw an article or a headline somewhere, and I can understand where he's coming from. I haven't heard him say it outright, but I saw something saying Toprak is struggling with some of the mechanics in the MotoGP paddock because they've got these egos. And I've seen it with, there's some brilliant mechanics that have been there a long time. Like I said, a lot of Brad's team get along. They're amazing guys, get along with them really well, and some other mechanics in other teams. But you do see some mechanics walk around that paddock like, well, I should be the rider, not just the mechanic. You know what I mean? And coming from the World Superbike paddock where it's much more family, it's a closer knit unit, it's more kind of, there's obviously the intensity of it all, but it's not as, critical or whatever the word is to use for that. And that's one thing I'm looking for if Brad is going this BMW route to World Superbikes, is any South African fan wanting to come and enjoy it. I met a couple of South African fans in the paddock over the weekend. One couple that come from Krugersdorp, and they came to Silverstone because they worried that this might be the last time they get to see Brad in MotoGP, which is a valid reason to come over. But they paid stupid amounts of money to sit in this hospitality upstairs, this VIP package from MotoGP, and they said they're so frustrated because they sat there just with suit and tie people drinking champagne, not even watching the bikes or the TV. They were there for the salmon and the, they were a bit upset with that whole thing, so they got out. But it is that environment, and it costs a lot of money. Whereas World Superbikes next year, you could potentially go, if Brad is going to this BMW team. I was speaking to the guy from Cressini that does these packages. They were like, if Brad, to him, when Brad goes to BMW World Superbikes, they're very good mates with Sean Muir, and they handle the hospitality with him. So they can put, as I said, between £2,500 to £3,000 for a Cressini package. They could look anything between £500 to £700 for a VIP experience paddock with the BMW World Superbike team in World Superbikes. That's meeting Brad, but to everything, even more than MotoGP. What a price, So that's going to be one beneficial thing. I think Brad's going to enjoy that paddock a lot more. It's going to be a lot more family friendly, with courts and navy, and just it's a bit of exercise. So I think that's also something Toprak is struggling with, is that intensity of the media, of the everything that comes with MotoGP as well. So were you talking to Gordon from pole position, Oli Moto? They should have got, no, it wasn't Gordon from pole position, Oli Moto, although I'm sure he'll probably also do some packages. There was someone else. So on the Toprak subject, that is something that I think you can also see. He's such a friendly, nice guy. Like I said, when I ask him for an autograph, it's like, but why? I'm just this guy that rides by. You know what I mean? He's not this scribbling Martin. I'm not going to get over my cans anytime soon, but genuinely nice guy. So I think if he really wants to make it in the paddock, he is going to have to build up a bit more of an armor and maybe get a bit more arrogance and stuff to him, because you look at the Martins and that's how you really thrive in that paddock. You can have an argument for, was Brad maybe too nice over the years? Did he need to push back more or get a bit more arrogance? Or I don't know. There's an argument for it, but certainly he needs to build that up. I'm trying to. There was something else I was going to mention, Paul, until you rudely interrupted me for the second time. Jack Miller. Jack Miller was asked, the other weekend, it wasn't easy, blah, 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 blah. And they were like, how does it feel with Fabio Quartararo, a guy that you're kind of competing with now most weekends because of, and let me tell you, Paul, watching Fabio Quartararo out on track, I can visit from the first session on Friday. I was like, this guy's going through the motions. This guy's riding around, getting his paycheck, waiting for next year. And it's horrible to say, and I don't want to put it out there that any rider gives up, but compared to the Quartararo I've seen at pace, really giving to this weekend, even off, these old demeanors just changed. But anyway, Miller was asked, how does it feel that this guy's getting a factory ride with Honda and you're kind of outcast? And he was like, it is what it is. Most importantly, I just want to race. I want to race competitively. And if that means I must go to a paddock, World Superbike paddock, it's what I must do. For one thing I will tell you is I don't want to be somewhere where I'm not wanted. And I'm clearly not wanted, So it's as simple as that. I'm out of here type thing. So that's, kind of emphasized the fact that he's out of there. Another good point was Augusto Fernandez, quickly before I give you the mic here, Paul, while it's in my brain. I mean, he was nowhere, and he said he really battled, making the transition from 850. And apparently they've done a lot of 850 testing. He's like, I've lived on this 850. That's all I've lived on. So getting back to the Michelins, and this was really hard. And then Dave Emmett from Moto Matters asked a really good question. He's like, Augusto, what is the point of this? what is the point of now taking you out of that frame mind of developing the 850, the Pirellis, putting you into this environment, which means absolutely no. What are you testing? What are you doing here? Not to sound rude, but what is the point? And Augusto Fernandez is kind of like, you're not 100% wrong, because it does kind of, disconnect things. It takes me out of that frame of mind. I've come here now. I've got to climb back on the 850 in a couple of weeks' time or a week's time with a big testing schedule, kind of with this distraction of the Michelins and this now. So, yeah, a couple of key things that I pulled out of a couple of those debriefs.
Yeah, a couple of points, Rob. First of all, on Augusto Fernandez, is it not right that the at the moment Yamaha are running the same chassis on the 1000 that they're going to use on the 850 that they're using on the 1000 at the moment? Yes. So possibly that's where it comes in. That can be the only thing. Yeah. He's not there to benefit Fabio Quartararo in any way. So that, to me, I thought that would be the only reason why is they're still tweaking the chassis. Then when he goes in, whenever, I think in 3 weeks' time, they've got an open test for about a month with the 850s. He takes that data info with him. That was the only thing I could think of. I thought exactly the same thing. So that's the point on him. Going back to Jack Miller, and Rob, you've said it for 100 years. He's the nicest guy in the paddock, but he's run his course. He's had every opportunity to do better than he has done. He's had factory bikes, he's had factory Ducatis, and I hear he wants to be competitive and he wants to race and he doesn't feel wanted there. But his time is up. In all fairness, he's had a good innings there. He's been given every opportunity, and I don't say it with any disrespect to him. I think he'll thrive, like we've said with Brad, going to World Superbikes. Look, the rumor is he's going to Yamaha. I don't know if that's changed, because apparently they drop-kicked his €1 million or £1 million out the door. But, I just think, there comes a time where, and I feel exactly the same with Maverick. In fact, if I had to choose between the two, I would keep Jack Miller in MotoGP any day of the week. But I think, too, Maverick, your time is up. You've had more than enough opportunity. Accept the fact that you haven't made it work and move on graciously. I'm not saying Jack isn't doing that. Maverick certainly isn't. He's going, if he does leave, he's going kicking and screaming. And if he doesn't make a return, which I think is highly unlikely that he'll return to MotoGP, then I think we'll really hear a story from Maverick. But yeah, let's see how that pans out. But I think on the Jack Miller thing, thanks, Jack, but it's time to move on. That's just life. That's how it is. You've had your opportunity. Give someone else a chance.
I must just give a shout out to Jack, because I know him and I know him well, and I know he knows me. But every time kind of I see him in the paddock, it's like, well, does he remember me? Every time he makes the time to say, "Hey, Rob, how you doing?" Big shout out.
He's a proper.
No, he is a great guy, and it's great to see him and his family. Same with Luca Marini this weekend. It was great to see Marini with his wife and baby on the scooter, just going around enjoying life. It's great to see. John Corsia, has Brad ever raced on tires other than what they're using at the moment? Does he adapt pretty quick? So he's only been on Michelin tires in his MotoGP career, but you look at when he came into MotoGP, won after a couple of races, picked up success with the previous generation Michelins, but as they've evolved to the current Michelin that we've had now, as we mentioned earlier, him along with the likes of Jack, Alex Rins, Franco Morbidelli, I'm even throwing Pecco Bagnaia into that, have certainly impacted the most with this new direction that Michelin have gone. While other riders seem to be able to use them and get the best out of them, some riders just can't get along with them. So Brad's been on Dunlop in Moto3 and Moto2 before. He knows those, and he adapted really well to those. I remember when he came back to South Africa, climbs on Pirellis, goes to Red Star, and within 2 laps is on lap record pace type thing. So I think he's very adaptable. It's a case of whether it's this exact same tire that Michelin are taking to World Superbike with him, or if it's a more. I can't see Michelin taking their current formula and it working in World Superbikes with this tire temperature cock and this. Yeah. I can't see it. It's going to. World Superbikes has never been about that. World Superbike is not prototype. It's more, if you knew the right person, you could buy those Pirellis, or you can buy as close to those Pirellis they use in World Superbikes as possible, the SCX and that. You go racing, you can get those. You can't buy these Michelins. World Superbikes is not about that. It mustn't be this prototype controlling tires. So I'm hoping they bring kind of a different tire, like more the World Endurance tire or something that's more production based, that they don't have to integrate all these different rules in that. And I think that'll help the racing. But yeah, I think Brad will be absolutely fine in adapting to those. Gareth Van Niekerk is Ikalekwana trying to get a permanent move to MotoGP. He's had a ride on a Honda LCR and Ducati Cressini. Listen, very impressed with Ikalekwana. Started the weekend off really well and was really proud of himself in the debrief of taking it easy, getting into Q2 without crashing, which was brilliant. And then he crashed in the sprint and crashed in the main race. So, yeah. So they kind of put a damper on it. But listen, there's a talented rider there. The fact that he climbed on a Ducati, Paul, like you touched upon earlier, is Ralph Fernandez a 2 second a lap faster than Toprak? Absolutely not. Is Ikalekwana, no disrespect to him, better than a Brad Binder? Absolutely not. He took advantage of a situation where tires and track surface and everything weren't working in the favors of this. But I told you, as I mentioned earlier, that Michelin have bought this Spanish tire almost. Ikalekwana is a Spanish rider that's come through that kind of system, climbed on the tire and had no problem with the tire. So is there something to take from that? Make of it what you will. But
for sure.
Yeah, Ikalekwana, let's see if he has a good season in World Superbikes next year and can do a Bulliga. I don't know. I think there's too many good youngsters coming up through the system. I think Bulliga could potentially be the last of them. One thing I will touch upon, Paul, that I saw outside of MotoGP about World Superbikes, we've got the likes of Rins, Brad, Miguel Oliveira's gone, Remy Gardner's gone, all these kind of outcasts. I mean, it's horrible to say that word, but that's what it is, from MotoGP into World Superbikes. And someone made a point that at first I read and I went, shut up, man. It makes World Superbike better, which in some ways it does. Most ways it does. But then I understood the point this guy was trying to make, where he said, I don't think MotoGP riders should be able to go into World Superbikes. I think World Superbike should be the feeder ground for you go from World Supersport 300 or Sport Bike, whatever it's called now, World Supersport 600, and then, instead of taking the Brads and the Miguels and that, take the Tom Amoses and the Ollie Baylisses. And I kind of understood that, like, let World Superbike be its own little bubble of development, because that's what happens in MotoGP, right? To MotoGP, So I could understand that argument, but at the same time, if I look at World Superbikes next year with the likes of Rins, Brad, Morbidelli, and Miller coming, those names are going to make it more exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which way do you go?
And then the converse of that is, well, look at Bulliga. He didn't make it in Moto3 and Moto2 going back 4 and 5 years ago. Went to World Super Sport, then World Superbike, kind of reset himself, and now he's earned a spot back in MotoGP. So, there's that. Then what about Jean Massier? He's back in World Superbike. So, where do you draw the line? So it's a difficult one. I hear the thinking behind it, but it's never going to happen, because the manufacturers, like we said earlier, it's a business. They want to win. So if they they're struggling with a guy like, let's say, Petrucci on the BM, and they get an opportunity to take a Brad Binder, they're going to take him without a shadow of a doubt before they take a guy from World Supersports. So it's a difficult one, but it's not going to change, and the thinking is right that World Supersports should feed into World Superbikes, just like Moto3, Moto2 feed into MotoGP. But that's in a perfect world. You've got limited amount of space and limited seats, so not everyone's going to get that opportunity. And then you're going to get the pickings from, so for example, Darren Binder. Now they suddenly, just as an example, World Supersport, Ducati say, look how well this guy's doing for us in the States. We need him here. Then is there a rule that says, no, you can't pull him in because he's an ex-MotoGP rider? So, I'm not saying there would be a rule, but, it would limit the pool, the gene pool of moving riders around, which benefits series like Darren upping the level in the US, and Brad or Toprak or whoever changing the course of their championship. So it's a difficult one to fathom.
Someone asking about Cal Crutchlow. Yeah, he was there, and, I felt bad for Cal because, it was like, oh, yeah, British rider and all hopes. And it was like, what's he realistically going to do? From his debriefs, love his debriefs. Cal's very open and honest and says it like it is. But, credit to him, when Foster around Silverstone than he's ever gone in his life. He did say he just couldn't believe he didn't think a motorcycle could ever go as Foster around Silverstone as it did. Yeah. And if you think about it, Paul, I mean, they all smashed the legs. 8 of the guys on Friday were within the lap record. Then Raul goes and puts or Martin goes and puts another second on it. Yeah. We saw it at Brno. We've seen it everywhere. It's not tenths we're finding now, seconds. So it's absolutely incredible where these riders and these machines and these teams are taking it. But yeah, from Carl's point of view, he was kind of the poster child and tried his hardest, and unfortunately crashed out in both. In the sprint race, said it was just chaos at the start, and Bastianini got it wrong, and he hit the back of Bastianini. And in the main race, he said it was just about trying to manage the rear tire, and he was over pushing the front tire. He tucked the front. So, I mean, there was never going to be anything much more than that. I managed to get my helmet.
You got it done,
thankfully. So it was great to see him. And the first thing he ever says when he sees me is, "How's it, Brew?" So I got my "How's it, Brew" from Carl. So it was great to see him. And there was something else I was going to say, Paul. Someone mentioned here that Wesley 290 Michelin said the new World Superbike tire will be based on their current World Endurance tire. So that's good to hear, not the MotoGP tire. Alex Fullion, would it be easier to get World Superbike in South Africa? Alex, yes, it would be. You could get World Superbike and MotoGP. Someone's just got to pay a hell of a lot of money to get it and not get the money back, which no one's going to.
And build the facilities.
And that. So
or improve them if it's Kyle.
I don't know, Paul, if you saw it on the Thursday in London, South African Denver Biggs was there in the crowd, and he asked, "What about Carl? What about MotoGP in South Africa?" And Carl said, "I've raced in South Africa, love it.
Yeah.
Carl is brilliant, amazing. The reality is no one's going to pay for it. Carl is not up to spec in some areas for MotoGP. So unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, it's not going to happen anytime soon." Paul, to end off, and if you have anything else to say on a nice little touching note, I've got a Alex Rins replica there. So again, Thursday morning, right, I've done the Marc Marquez helmets, cool. Now I need to get Alex Rins. That's for my personal collection. Great. Standing outside the hospitality because it's quiet now. This is about 11 o'clock. From 2 o'clock onwards, the public are allowed in. You paid £80. You got a paddock pass from 2 to 7 o'clock, which I think is brilliant, because the riders were still, a lot of them do hide, which is not nice, but you do still get to see the race trucks and you get to see something cool. So I'm waiting for Alex Rins. Next minute, out of the hospitality, I see this guy in full Yamaha Monster Energy gear and this other guy walk out, and I'm like, oh God, what are they going to chase me away, or what's going to go happen here? So they come up to me, and the little guy who's wearing like a Rins hoodie says, "Oh, that's a nice helmet. Can I see it?" So I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's a Rins replica. He's Austin limited edition replica. It was I bought it." And he was like, "Oh, this is nice." So after about 5 minutes of looking at this helmet, and he goes, "Oh no, I'm Alex's dad." So I was like, "Ah, brilliant." Jeez, I didn't think, because Alex is so much taller and you're short. Yeah. So then they walked me to, they said, "You're waiting for Alex?" I said, "Yes." So they take me to the racetrack. He's not there, but then the mechanic guy gives me 2 of his knee sliders. Oh, fantastic. That's awesome. Thank you. So his dad says, "Wait, Chap." Now, at this point, I'd been waiting for Top Rack for over an hour. No Top Rack inside. So now while I'm standing there by the hospitality with this Rins helmet, with a Top Rack helmet now packed away nice and comfortably, who walks out straight towards
Top Rack?
So now I'm about to abandon ship with Rins to run and get Top Rack, because the Top Rack one I'm selling to get money for the visas, that Rins one I'm keeping. So I need to get the Top Rack. And as I'm about to run, the dad makes eye contact with me. He's like, "No, come here." There's a little alleyway to the back where the motorhomes are. That's great. So I go, he punches in the code for Alex's door, opens and goes, right, Spanish. Next minute, Alex Rins walks out, puts his shirt on, no shoes, on his socks. He's like, "Hey, hi." And his dad's like, "Come on, my boy, you've got a fan. I don't think there's many of them maybe around." But he was like, "Come on, you've got to sign this." And I had Alex Rins altar. I got a great photo. Signed the helmet, signed the visor, signed the knee sliders, arm around me. Yeah, another nice moment. This is what makes getting into the paddock so special, if you can.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. And it's a dream for all of us, but it's so lacquer that you can share your experience with us. And it's like we've kind of living it through you, which just makes it more personal and more special. These stories that, if you're not a diehard fan, you don't appreciate them. I've stood there myself in the paddock waiting to get autographs, photographs, and you got to be patient and, but it's fantastic. It's unbelievable. And then you realize that these guys are just people, that they're super talented at what they do, but at the heart of it, like you say, Top Rack, just a decent guy. Rins, they're just people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it is. And we forget that sometimes. Paul, I'm just going to make your mouth water a little bit, yeah.
I can see the cover already. I saw it earlier.
Paul, I'm so, upset I am that I have to sell these helmets. One day. And when I got it, I did think of you. I won't lie.
Yeah. Cheap.
I've never been a huge fan of Marc Marquez replica helmets, never, because it didn't have the Red Bull on, so they always look plain and miserable. But this now has every single sponsor logo,
all of them.
The visor,
cheapers.
Tear off, and you'll notice. Well, some people will notice because the guy told me at the thing is Mark doesn't have this on his tear offs anymore because it blocks the sponsor apparently. So he gave tear off. So look at Silverstone,
real special one
anymore, but. I put this together all by myself, put the stickers on all by myself, tear off on. I mean, the guy he said it's probably the best work he's ever seen in his life.
Yeah, fantastic. That's special, eh? Are you going to auction that?
No. I've pre-sold the one to a very good mate of mine here in the UK because I needed the money to buy these two helmets up front. And then the second one is up for sale on... I say stay away from eBay, and I've put the thing up for sale on eBay. But I put it up on Facebook. There's a MotoGP memorabilia that I get a lot of hits from. So
okay, just put it in your collection, Rob.
I said to Amy, "No, listen, I wasn't doof. I did keep one extra visor signed, and I said to Amy, listen, for Christmas, my birthday for the next 5 years, just keep the money. Don't buy me socks and undies and fucking soap on a rope or whatever.
Anything,
I just want a Marc Marquez replica helmet so I can put it in the cabinet.
Put the vase,
So that's special. So anyway, it's if anyone, it's the perfect time to do it because you're buying a helmet that's the closest thing to the actual replica. That I promise you, Mark's helmet, his actual helmet was there, and this replica was there. The only difference is on the back of this, the UK, they put this stupid giant gold sticker that approves that it's been tested and what. It's like the dumbest sticker in the world. It's horrible. That's the only difference. Everything else is exactly the same. The only thing Mark has, he's got little red tear-off knobs for his tear-off, and these ones have clear. And that guy wouldn't give me the red ones. He's like, these are for Mark only. So I was like,
only, yes, unreal.
A little bit more of the paddock there for you.
Yeah.
And I did think of you, I promise you. When I had Mark,
thank you, Rob.
I was going to say, listen, Mark, my mate, Paul is your biggest fan. Like, I'm a big fan, but my mate Paul is your biggest fan. You've got to watch this show. But like I said, when he walked up to me, I went,
Also, Rob, then we're going to have to put Spanish subtitles, and that'll take us a while, eh?
Yeah, and then people will really want his autograph, and we'll blow him into a new strip.
And then Johnny Martins won't watch anymore. And we're not losing him. He's been a long time supporter.
We can't lose him. We can't lose him.
No, for sure. Yeah.
But Paul, thank you so much. Everyone in the comments, great as always. Next year I'll be there. Bought my early bird ticket, Robert Mackey, for next year. I'll definitely be there. Johnny Martin, here we go, Paulie. Not please, Rob. Johnny,
he's got a sense of humor, that guy.
It's like Ollie Moto. We all know Ollie Moto is a VR46 man, and rightfully so. So he's not a big Marc Marquez fan. So he was asking me about the helmets and stuff, and I was like, and he was like, well, sorry, Rob, I'm not going to be supporting you. I won't be buying one of your Marc Marquez replicas. I was like, Ollie, I fully understand. No worries, my son. So anyway, still that banter around. But anyway, it's been a great show, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us. Over 2 hours worth of talking. We could talk for another 2 days. There's not much to talk about. But we've got a 2-week break. Enjoy the 2 weeks, and then it's Aragon, where we're going to be pulling a lot more. There's a lot of questions heading into Aragon, so hopefully we'll have a lot more answers after that. But a big thank you to everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Lekker. Thanks, Rob. That was unbelievable. Really fantastic. And to everyone who tuned in, thanks again. And Johnny, hopefully in 2 weeks' time, I'll wear my red cap for you.
Get it out. Get it out. Ollie Moto, no, Bjorn has not sent me the DVDs yet. Okay. Bjorn's got a lot of jobs to do on a race weekend, obviously, but I asked him one job was to bring me this DVD set of our racing from when we raced, and I was competitive because I just want to show my son that your dad was competitive, So when I tell you to do things in football, it's because I've been competitive, but he just doesn't believe because there's no evidence. And Bjorn, message me the day before, Rob, sweet. I messaged him the Monday, the Tuesday, the Wednesday. I see him with Ollie Motor on the Thursday. Bjorn says, "Oh, Rob, I forgot your DVDs."
Enough said.
I hope you have a cock birthday today, Bjorn. But again, thank you guys. Enjoy the rest.
Thanks, everyone. Cool, man.
Bye.
Cheers.